Derek Simpson's world shatters as an alien female thrusts a pulsating egg into his arms, declaring him the father. The seasoned human soldier stands frozen in Colonel Reeves' office on Nexus 7, the interstellar military outpost he's called home for the past 3 years. His mind reels, struggling to comprehend the gravity of the situation unfolding before him. The irate Kobali female, Astra, clutches the large egg protectively, her multifaceted eyes narrowed in accusation. "You will take responsibility for our offspring, human," she hisses, her words dripping with venom and determination. Colonel Reeves, a stern-faced woman with graying hair, sighs heavily. "Private Simpson, the Kobali government has filed an official paternity claim. They're seeking substantial child support payments." Derek's jaw drops. "That's impossible. We're not even compatible species." He gestures wildly between himself and Astra, his voice rising with each word. The colonel's expression remains impassive. Recent breakthroughs in Kobali genetic engineering have made cross-species fertilization possible, though extremely rare. She leans forward, her voice lowering. "Simpson, if you refuse to comply with their demands, you could jeopardize the fragile peace treaty between humans and Kobali. We can't risk reigniting the war that ended just 2 years ago." The weight of interstellar diplomacy crashes down on Derek's shoulders. He opens his mouth to protest further, but his words are cut short by a sudden commotion. Astra collapses to the floor, the egg in her arms beginning to crack. Alarms blare throughout the base as medical personnel rush into the office. A tall, slender woman in a lab coat pushes through the crowd. "I'm Dr. Alara Ramos, chief xenobiologist," she announces, kneeling beside Astra. Her fingers dance over a handheld scanner, her brow furrowing at the results. Astra's life force is intrinsically linked to the egg's development. "Your decision, Private Simpson, will determine not only her fate, but also the future of human-Kobali relations." Derek's head spins as he tries to process the information. He watches helpless as Dr. Ramos begins emergency tests on both him and the egg. The room buzzes with tension, the fate of 2 species hanging in the balance. Colonel Reeves' voice cuts through the chaos. "Simpson, we need your decision now. Are you willing to accept responsibility for this child and the diplomatic consequences that come with it?" Derek's gaze darts between the pulsating egg, the unconscious Astra, and the stern faces of his superiors. The consequences of his actions at that diplomatic reception 3 months ago now loom larger than he could have ever imagined. As the alarms continue to blare and tensions rise, Derek realizes that his next words could alter the course of human history. With a deep breath, he opens his mouth to respond, the weight of 2 worlds resting on his shoulders. Derek's mouth went dry as he struggled to form words. The fate of 2 species hung on his response, but before he could speak, the situation spiraled into chaos. Astra's body convulsed, her multifaceted eyes rolling back as she collapsed to the floor. The egg in her arms began to pulse with an eerie, otherworldly light. Alarms blared throughout the base, their urgent wailing adding to the pandemonium. "Medical team to Colonel Reeves' office stat." Dr. Alara Ramos' voice cut through the din as she rushed to Astra's side. The tall xenobiologist's fingers flew over her handheld scanner, her brow furrowed in concentration. Derek watched, frozen in place, as the medical team burst into the room. They quickly transferred Astra to a hover stretcher, the egg still clutched tightly to her chest. Dr. Ramos barked orders as they rushed towards the medical bay, leaving Derek, Colonel Reeves, and a group of stunned onlookers in their wake. "Private Simpson with me," Colonel Reeves commanded, her voice brooking no argument. Derek followed her out of the office, his knees going weak as they hurried after the medical team. The base's medical bay was a hive of activity. Alien and human medical staff moved with practiced efficiency, hooking Astra up to an array of unfamiliar machines. The pulsating egg sat in a specialized containment field, bathed in a soft, pulsing light. Dr. Ramos approached Derek, her face a mask of professional calm. "Private, we need to run some tests immediately. The egg's development seems to be intrinsically linked to Astra's life force, and we need to understand the extent of your contribution." Derek nodded numbly, allowing himself to be led to an examination table. As Dr. Ramos began her tests, he watched the frantic activity surrounding Astra. Her skin had taken on a sickly pallor, her chest rising and falling in shallow, labored breaths. Time seemed to stretch as Derek underwent a battery of tests. Blood samples, genetic scans, and other procedures he couldn't begin to comprehend flew by in a blur. All the while, the egg continued its ominous pulsing, casting an otherworldly glow throughout the medical bay. After what felt like hours, but was likely only minutes, Dr. Ramos returned, her face grave. "Private Simpson, Colonel Reeves, we have the results." Derek's heart pounded in his chest as Dr. Ramos pulled up a holographic display. Complex genetic sequences danced before his eyes, meaningless to him but clearly significant to the xenobiologist. The tests confirm a partial genetic match between Private Simpson and the egg, Dr. Ramos announced, her voice steady but tinged with awe. "It's not a full human Kobali hybrid, but there are unmistakable traces of human DNA intertwined with Kobali genetic material." The room erupted into a flurry of whispers and exclamations. Derek staggered backward, his legs threatening to give way beneath him. Colonel Reeves steadied him with a firm hand on his shoulder. "What does this mean?" Derek managed to croak out, his voice barely above a whisper. Before Dr. Ramos could respond, a group of Kobali officials burst into the medical bay, their faces a mix of excitement and concern. They immediately began discussing the diplomatic implications of this unprecedented situation, their voices rising in animated debate. Colonel Reeves pulled Derek aside, her voice low and urgent. "Simpson, you need to understand the gravity of the situation. This discovery could either strengthen or destroy the fragile peace between humans and Kobali. Your actions from this point forward will have far-reaching consequences." Derek opened his mouth to respond, but a sudden commotion from Astra's bed drew everyone's attention. The egg in the containment field began to glow even more intensely, emitting a high-pitched hum that filled the medical bay. Astra's body arched off the bed, her vital signs fluctuating wildly. "It's destabilizing," Dr. Ramos shouted, rushing to the containment field. "The egg requires a specific type of energy to complete its development, energy that can only be provided by its human parent." Without warning, tendrils of light extended from the egg, reaching out towards Derek. He felt an inexplicable pull, drawing him towards the glowing shell. The medical staff scrambled to intervene, but Derek found himself moving forward as if in a trance. As his fingertips made contact with the egg's surface, a surge of energy coursed through his body. The sensation was unlike anything he had ever experienced, a mixture of exhilaration and terror that left him gasping for breath. Astra's vital signs began to stabilize, her breathing evening out as color returned to her skin. The egg's pulsations became stronger and more regular, its glow softening to a warm, comforting light. Dr. Ramos's eyes were wide with excitement as she scanned both Derek and the egg. "Incredible! Your touch has initiated a crucial stage in the egg's development. It appears that regular physical contact between you and the egg will be necessary for its survival and Astra's recovery." The weight of this revelation crashed down on Derek. He realized that he now faced a monumental decision, one that would affect not only his own life, but potentially the future of human-Kobali relations. As he grappled with the enormity of his choice, the medical bay doors slid open once more. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez strode in, her eyes scanning the room until they locked onto Derek. Her face, usually warm and inviting, was now a mask of confusion and hurt. "Derek," Sarah's voice cut through the din of the medical bay. "What's going on? I heard rumors, but I never thought." Her voice trailed off as she took in the scene before her. Derek with his hand on the glowing egg, Astra recovering on the bed, and the mix of human and Kobali officials watching with held breath. Derek felt the weight of Sarah's gaze, adding another layer of complexity to his already overwhelming situation. He knew he owed her an explanation, but how could he possibly make her understand when he barely grasped the situation himself? As alarms continued to sound and the egg pulsed beneath his touch, Derek realized that he had only moments to make a decision that would alter the course of his life and potentially the future of 2 species. The clock was ticking, and the fate of Astra, the unborn offspring, and the fragile peace between humans and Kobali now rested in his hands. Derek's heart raced as he felt the pull of the egg intensify. Without conscious thought, he stepped forward, drawn by an inexplicable force. His hands made contact with the pulsating shell, and a jolt of energy surged through his body. He gasped, his vision blurring for a moment as the sensation overwhelmed him. The egg's glow brightened, bathing the medical bay in an ethereal light. Astra's vitals, previously erratic, began to stabilize on the monitors surrounding her bed. Dr. Ramos sprang into action, her fingers flying over her datapad as she barked orders to her team. Get me a full-spectrum analysis of that energy transfer. I want every sensor we have trained on Private Simpson and the egg. Derek stood transfixed, unable to move his hands from the egg's surface. He felt a connection forming, a bond that transcended the physical. The egg's pulsation seemed to sync with his own heartbeat, creating a rhythm that resonated through his entire being. Incredible, Dr. Ramos breathed, her eyes wide as she studied the readings. The egg is drawing energy directly from you, Private. It's using your bioelectric field to stabilize its own development. She turned to Colonel Reeves, her voice tight with excitement. This is unprecedented. We're witnessing a symbiotic relationship between a human and a Kobali egg. Colonel Reeves' stern expression softened slightly, the implications of the situation dawning on her. Dr. Ramos, what does this mean for Private Simpson and the egg? The xenobiologist's fingers danced over her datapad, correlating data at a frantic pace. Based on these readings, I believe Private Simpson will need to maintain regular physical contact with the egg to ensure its survival and proper development. We're looking at daily sessions, possibly multiple times a day. Derek's mind reeled at the implications. He turned to Colonel Reeves, his voice hoarse. Sir, what about my duties? My responsibilities to the base? Colonel Reeves straightened, her decision already made. Private Simpson, consider yourself on temporary leave from your regular duties. Your new assignment is the care and protection of this egg. The diplomatic implications of this situation are too significant to ignore. A commotion at the door drew Derek's attention. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez stood there, her face a mask of confusion and hurt. Their eyes met, and Derek felt a stab of guilt pierce his heart. Sarah, he began, but she cut him off with a sharp gesture. We need to talk, she said, her voice cold. Now. Colonel Reeves nodded, gesturing to an adjacent room. Use my office. This conversation needs to happen. Derek reluctantly pulled his hands away from the egg, surprised at the sense of loss he felt as the connection broke. He followed Sarah into the office, closing the door behind them. Sarah whirled on him, her eyes flashing with anger and betrayal. What the hell is going on, Derek? I hear rumors about you and some alien, and then I walk in to find. This? She gestured wildly towards the medical bay. Derek ran a hand through his hair, searching for the right words. Sarah, I swear I never meant for any of this to happen. That diplomatic reception 3 months ago. Things got out of hand. I didn't know, couldn't have known, that this was even possible. Sarah's laugh was bitter. Out of hand? That's how you describe impregnating an alien species? She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. How am I supposed to trust you after this, Derek? How can we move forward? Derek reached for her, but she stepped back. "Sarah, please. I know this is insane, but I need you. I don't know how to handle this alone." For a moment, Sarah's expression softened, but then she steeled herself. "I can't do this right now, Derek. I need time to process all of this." With that, she turned and stormed out of the office, leaving Derek alone with the weight of his new reality. As he stepped back into the medical bay, Derek noticed the stares and whispers from the gathered personnel. News traveled fast on a base like Nexus 7, and he knew his life would never be the same. Astra stirred on her bed, her multifaceted eyes focusing on Derek. "Human," she said, her voice weak but determined. "We must speak of our offspring." Derek approached her bedside, acutely aware of the eyes upon them. Astra reached out, grasping his hand with surprising strength. "Our child," she said, "is more than just an accident. It is a bridge between our species, a symbol of what we can achieve together." The gravity of her words settled over Derek like a physical weight. He looked at the pulsating egg, then back to Astra. I don't know if I'm ready for this kind of responsibility." Astra's grip tightened. None of us are ever truly ready for parenthood, human. But we must rise to the challenge for the sake of our child and for the future of both our peoples. As Derek grappled with the enormity of his situation, Dr. Ramos approached, her face grave. "Private Simpson, we need to run some additional tests. Your contact with the egg seems to be having some unexpected effects on your physiology." Derek nodded numbly, allowing himself to be led to an examination table. As Dr. Ramos began her scans, he couldn't help but wonder what other surprises this unprecedented situation had in store for him, and for the future of human-Kobali relations. Derek's world had been turned upside down in a matter of hours. As he sat on the examination table, his mind reeled from the implications of Dr. Ramos's words. The egg's pulsation seemed to echo through his body, a constant reminder of the bizarre connection he now shared with his hybrid offspring. Days blurred together as Derek fell into a routine of regular energy transfer sessions with the egg. Each time he made contact, he felt the pull grow stronger, the connection deeper. His skin began to take on a faint, otherworldly sheen, barely noticeable at first, but growing more pronounced with each passing day. During one such session, as Derek's hands rested on the egg's surface, a blinding flash of light erupted from within. He stumbled back, shielding his eyes, as chaos erupted in the medical bay. "Everyone, stay calm." Dr. Ramos's voice cut through the commotion. As the spots cleared from Derek's vision, he gasped at the sight before him. The egg had transformed. Its once opaque shell now shimmered with translucence, revealing the rapidly developing form within. Tiny limbs curled and uncurled, a head bobbed gently, and Derek could swear he saw the flutter of eyelids. Dr. Ramos rushed forward, her scanner whirring as she passed it over the egg. Her eyes widened with each new reading. "This is unprecedented. The rate of development is off the charts. It's surpassing both human and Kobali norms by a significant margin." Derek leaned in, mesmerized by the sight of his offspring. A sudden pulse of emotion washed over him, not his own, but emanating from the egg itself. He staggered, overwhelmed by the sensation. "Private Simpson?" Colonel Reeves steadied him. "What's wrong?" Derek shook his head, trying to clear it. I felt something from the egg, like it was trying to communicate." Dr. Ramos's head snapped up. Telepathic communication? At this stage of development? She furiously tapped at her datapad. "We need to run more tests. This hybrid's abilities are beyond anything we could have predicted." As word spread of the egg's transformation, Derek found himself at the center of a storm. Wherever he went on the base, he felt eyes upon him, some curious, others hostile. Whispers followed in his wake. One evening, As he made his way back to his quarters, a rough voice called out from the shadows. "Hey, freak!" Derek turned to see Sergeant Marcus Graves emerge from a side corridor, flanked by 2 other soldiers. The sergeant's face twisted with disgust as he looked at Derek. "You're a disgrace to the uniform," Graves spat. "Breeding with aliens, contaminating the human gene pool. You make me sick." Derek's fists clenched at his sides, but he forced himself to remain calm. "Stand down, Sergeant. This is none of your concern." Graves stepped closer, his breath hot on Derek's face. "Oh, but it is. That abomination you're nurturing is a threat to all of us, and we won't stand for it." Before Derek could respond, a security team rounded the corner. Graves and his cronies melted back into the shadows, leaving Derek with a gnawing sense of unease. The next morning, Derek arrived at the medical bay to find Dr. Nara, a prominent Kobali scientist, deep in conversation with Ambassador Zorn. Their voices hushed as he entered, but he caught snippets of their discussion. Groundbreaking potential and scientific marvel. Dr. Ramos greeted him with a tight smile. "Private Simpson, Dr. Nara and her team have expressed interest in conducting some additional studies on the egg. Non-invasive, of course." Derek felt a surge of protectiveness. "I'm not comfortable with that. We don't know how it might affect the development." Ambassador Zorn stepped forward, his multifaceted eyes glinting. "Your concern is understandable, Private. But surely you see the potential benefits for both our species? This hybrid could revolutionize our understanding of genetics, of interspecies compatibility." As Derek opened his mouth to argue, a familiar voice cut through the tension. He said no. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez stood in the doorway, her face a mask of purpose. She strode into the room, positioning herself between Derek and the others. "Private Simpson has sole authority over decisions regarding the egg," she stated firmly. "And I suggest you all remember that." Derek felt a rush of gratitude towards Sarah, despite the lingering awkwardness between them. As the Kobali officials reluctantly withdrew, Sarah turned to him, her expression softening slightly. "We need to talk," she said quietly. "I've uncovered some information about that diplomatic reception where you met Astra. Things aren't adding up." Before she could elaborate, alarms blared throughout the base. Colonel Reeves's voice crackled over the intercom. "All personnel to battle stations. Unidentified vessel approaching. This is not a drill." Derek's heart raced as he looked at the egg, now pulsing with an intense light. He could feel waves of fear and confusion emanating from within. Whatever was coming, he knew he had to protect his offspring at all costs. As chaos erupted around them, Derek placed his hands on the egg's surface, trying to project calm and reassurance. The hybrid's rapid development had accelerated his own transformation, and he could feel power surging through his veins. Sarah grabbed his arm. "We need to move. Now." As they prepared to relocate the egg, the base shuddered under the impact of weapons fire. The mysterious ship had breached their defenses, and time was running out. Out! Derek's heart pounded as he cradled the egg, its pulsations growing stronger with each passing second. "This way!" Sarah shouted, gesturing towards a side corridor. They sprinted down the hallway, the sounds of battle echoing behind them. Colonel Reeves and a mixed team of human and Kobali guards fell into formation around them, creating a protective barrier. As they rounded a corner, the base shuddered violently. Derek stumbled, nearly losing his grip on the egg. A deafening crash reverberated through the structure, followed by the screech of tearing metal. The ship breached the outer defenses. Colonel Reeves shouted, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of alarms. It's crashed into the lower levels. The impact threw the evacuation team off balance. Derek felt a wave of fear and confusion emanating from the egg, its surface now glowing with an intense light. He placed a hand on it, trying to project calm despite his own racing heart. Suddenly, a group of figures emerged from a nearby maintenance shaft. Derek recognized Sergeant Marcus Graves at their head, his face contorted with rage. "There's the freak and his abomination," Graves snarled, brandishing a makeshift weapon. "Take them down!" The corridor erupted into chaos. Colonel Reeves and her loyal guards formed a tight circle around Derek, Astra, and the egg, fending off Graves' assailants with a combination of energy weapons and hand-to-hand combat. Derek felt a surge of energy course through his body, his skin tingling with an otherworldly power. Without thinking, he lashed out at an attacker who had broken through the defensive line. His fist connected with impossible speed and strength, sending the man flying backward into his comrades. "Derek," Sarah called out, her eyes wide with shock. "How did you dash?" But there was no time for explanations. As they fought off Graves' human supremacists, a new threat emerged from the opposite end of the corridor. Dr. Nara and her team of Kobali scientists approached, their eyes fixed on the glowing egg. "The hybrid must be preserved for study," Dr. Nara shouted, her voice cutting through the din of battle. "Secure the egg!" Derek found himself caught in a three-way conflict, desperately trying to protect the egg from both human and Kobali aggressors. He lashed out with his newfound strength, incapacitating attackers from both sides as they pressed in. Suddenly, a thunderous boom shook the entire base. The fighting paused momentarily as all eyes turned towards the source of the disturbance. The wall at the end of the corridor bulged inward before exploding in a shower of debris and sparks. Through the smoke and dust emerged a group of beings unlike anything Derek had ever seen. They were clearly hybrids, part human, part Kobali, but fully grown and radiating an aura of power. At their head stood a charismatic figure, his eyes scanning the scene before him. "I am ZYX," the leader announced, his voice carrying a strange resonance that seemed to vibrate in Derek's very bones. "We come from the future, descendants of the child you now protect." The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled crowd. Graves and his followers lowered their weapons, confusion replacing their earlier rage. Dr. Nara and her team stepped back, their faces a mix of awe and scientific curiosity. ZYX approached Derek and Astra, his eyes fixed on the pulsating egg. "In our timeline, this child becomes a pivotal figure in human-Kobali relations. We've come to ensure that future comes to pass." As ZYX spoke, the egg in Derek's arms began to vibrate intensely. Cracks appeared on its surface, spreading like a spiderweb across the translucent shell. "The egg!" Dr. Ramos exclaimed, rushing forward with her scanner. "The accelerated development. It's reached a critical stage. It's hatching." Derek felt a wave of panic wash over him. They were in the middle of a war zone, surrounded by hostile forces. This was no place for a newborn hybrid child to enter the world. "We need to move," he said, locking eyes with ZYX. "Is there somewhere safe we can go?" Before ZYX could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. I believe I can help with that." All eyes turned to see Agent Krell step out from behind a partially collapsed wall panel. He held up a badge that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. "I'm part of a secret interspecies peacekeeping force. We have a secure location where the child can be safely born." Derek's mind reeled from the rapid-fire revelations, but the egg's increasingly urgent pulsations left no time for hesitation. He nodded to Krell, then turned to address the assembled crowd. "This child represents the future of both our species," he said, his voice stronger and more assured than he felt. "Anyone who wants to be part of that future, come with us. Anyone who doesn't, stay out of our way." With that, Derek cradled the egg close to his chest and stepped towards Agent Krell. Astra moved to his side, her hand resting protectively on the egg. Sarah, Colonel Reeves, and the loyal guards fell in around them, creating a protective formation. As they began to move, ZYX and his hybrid companions took up positions at the rear. Their advanced technology, creating a shimmering barrier that kept Graves' remaining followers and Dr. Nara's team at bay. They moved swiftly through the corridors of Nexus 7, following Agent Krell's lead. The egg's vibrations grew more intense with each passing moment, and Derek could feel the life within pushing against its confines, eager to emerge into the world. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a heavily armored door. Krell placed his hand on a hidden panel, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. "In here," he said urgently. "This chamber is shielded from outside interference. It's the safest place for the birth." They filed into the room, a sterile, high-tech space filled with advanced medical equipment. As the door sealed behind them, Derek felt a moment of relief. But that relief was short-lived as the egg in his arms gave a violent shudder. A crack split the shell from top to bottom, and a small, six-fingered hand pushed through the opening. The hybrid child was coming into the world, and with it, the dawn of a new era for both humans and Kobali. Derek locked eyes with Astra, then with ZYX. The future they represented stood on a knife's edge, balanced between hope and conflict. As the egg continued to crack and split, Derek knew that the next few moments would shape the destiny of two species and the fate of the entire galaxy. The egg's surface continued to fracture, revealing glimpses of the hybrid child within. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the base, their piercing wails cutting through the tense atmosphere of the medical chamber. The room shuddered violently, nearly knocking Derek off his feet. Colonel Reeves pressed her hand to her earpiece, her face grim. "The base's security systems have gone haywire. We're in full lockdown." As if on cue, the heavy doors of the medical chamber groaned, massive bolts sliding into place with a resounding clang. They were sealed in. "We can't stay here," Agent Krell said, his eyes darting around the room. "This chamber isn't equipped for a full-term birth, especially not one as unique as this." Derek cradled the egg closer, feeling the life within pulse against his chest. "Then where do we go?" Before anyone could answer, the egg gave a violent shudder. A crack splintered across its surface, and a small, six-fingered hand pushed through, grasping at the air. "We're out of time," Dr. Ramos said, her voice tight with urgency. "We need to move. Now." Colonel Reeves strode to a wall panel, prying it open to reveal a narrow maintenance shaft. "This way. It's our only option." One by one, they squeezed into the cramped passage, the sounds of the base's chaos muffled by the thick walls. Derek went last, carefully maneuvering the fragile egg through the tight opening. The shaft was dim and claustrophobic, forcing the diverse group into uncomfortable proximity. Derek could feel the tension radiating from Sergeant Graves, who kept shooting distrustful glances at ZYX and his hybrid companions. They had barely made it 50 meters when Astra stumbled, her legs buckling beneath her. Derek reached out instinctively, catching her with his free arm. The moment their skin made contact, a jolt of energy surged through them both. The world around them fell away, replaced by a swirling vortex of light and color. Within the chaos, Derek saw flashes of a possible future, a world where humans and Kobali lived in harmony, guided by the wisdom of their hybrid child. The vision ended as abruptly as it began, leaving Derek and Astra gasping for air. In that moment of distraction, Dr. Nara lunged forward, snatching the egg from Derek's grasp. "The future of our species is too important to leave to chance," she hissed, turning to flee. But ZYX was faster. The hybrid leader phased through the solid metal of the shaft's wall, reappearing directly in Dr. Nara's path. "The child's future is not yours to decide," he said, reaching for the egg. In the ensuing struggle, the egg was jostled violently. A blinding flash of energy erupted from its core, knocking everyone off their feet. When the light faded, Derek's heart stopped. The egg was gone, In its place hovered a swirling vortex of energy, pulsing with the same rhythm the egg had moments before. Dr. Ramos fumbled for her scanner, her eyes wide with disbelief. "The embryo," she breathed. "It's entered a state of quantum flux. It exists in multiple stages of development simultaneously." Agent Krell pushed forward, producing a sleek device from a hidden compartment in his uniform. "This can stabilize the vortex, but it needs a massive power source." Colonel Reeves's face hardened with perseverance. "The main reactor core. It's our only option." "That's on the other side of the base," Sergeant Graves interjected. "We'll never make it through the lockdown protocols." "We might," Colonel Reeves said, turning to the sergeant, "if someone with inside knowledge of the base's layout were to guide us." Graves hesitated, his eyes darting between the swirling vortex and the determined faces around him. Finally, he nodded. "There are maintenance tunnels. One's not on the official schematics. They'll get us close." As they set off through the winding shafts, Derek felt a tingling sensation spread across his skin. He looked down to see his arms glowing with an otherworldly light. Experimentally, he reached out towards a section of wall, feeling the energy field around it bend to his will. "Your transformation is accelerating," ZYX observed. "The abilities you're developing may be crucial to our success." They pressed on through the labyrinth of tunnels, encountering obstacles at every turn. Malfunctioning security drones buzzed angrily in their path, only to be short-circuited by Derek's newfound ability to manipulate energy fields. Treacherous gaps in the maintenance shafts were bridged by ZYX and his hybrid companions, their advanced abilities proving invaluable. Astra, though weakened, provided vital guidance. Her Kobali physiology allowed her to sense fluctuations in the energy vortex, alerting the group when they needed to pause to avoid further destabilizing the embryo. As they neared the reactor core, alarms blared with renewed intensity. "They've detected the energy emissions," Agent Krell shouted over the din. "We're about to have company." The maintenance shaft opened into a wide corridor, and the group found themselves face to face with a contingent of armed guards, both human and Kobali. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Derek stepped forward, his skin glowing with nearly unleashed energy. "We don't have time for this," he said, his voice resonating with newfound power. "Our child, the future of both our species, hangs in the balance. Stand aside or stand with us, but don't stand in our way." The guards exchanged uncertain glances. In that moment of hesitation, ZYX and his hybrid companions moved with blinding speed, disarming the guards before they could react. "The reactor core is just ahead," Sergeant Graves called out, pointing down the corridor. As they ran, Derek could feel the energy vortex pulsing more radically. Time was running out. They burst through the doors of the reactor room, the massive core thrumming with power before them. Agent Krell rushed to a control panel, his fingers flying over the keys. "I need to interface the stabilizer with the core systems. Cover me." The sounds of approaching footsteps echoed from the corridor. Derek turned to face the entrance, his hands crackling with energy. Astra stood beside him, her face set with drive. ZYX and his hybrid companions formed a protective semicircle around Agent Krell. As the first wave of security forces appeared in the doorway, Derek realized that the next few moments would determine not just the fate of his child, but the future of human-Kobali relations. The reactor room was about to become a battleground, with the very fabric of reality hanging in the balance. The energy vortex pulsed violently, reminding them all of the precious, fragile life at stake. With no time left for doubt or hesitation, Derek prepared to face whatever came through that door, ready to fight for a future he could barely comprehend. Comprehend was unfolding before his eyes. The energy vortex pulsed erratically, its unstable power threatening to tear apart the very fabric of reality. As they approached the reactor core, Derek's newfound abilities tingled beneath his skin. The group came to an abrupt halt before a formidable security checkpoint. Advanced biometric scanners guarded the entrance, their sleek surfaces glowing with an eerie blue light. "This is it," Sergeant Graves whispered, his voice tight with tension. "The checkpoint's designed to keep out anyone without the highest clearance." Derek stepped forward, his skin emitting a soft, otherworldly glow. As he neared the scanners, their steady hum turned into a discordant whine. The screens flickered and distorted, unable to process Derek's hybrid physiology. "It's working," Agent Krell said, rushing to a nearby control panel. His fingers flew across the keys, taking advantage of the momentary glitch. With a final keystroke, the heavy doors slid open, granting them access to the reactor chamber. They burst into the vast room, the massive reactor core dominating the center, its pulsing energy casting long shadows across the polished floor. But their relief was short-lived. "Freeze!" a commanding voice rang out. A squad of human security personnel emerged from behind the reactor, weapons raised. At their head stood a stern-faced woman with piercing eyes and close-cropped gray hair. "I'm Major Elena Volkov. You have exactly 10 seconds to explain your presence in this restricted area." Before anyone could respond, a maintenance hatch on the far side of the room clanged open. A team of Kobali engineers climbed out, led by a tall, willowy figure with iridescent skin. "What is the meaning of this intrusion?" the Kobali leader demanded, her multifaceted eyes narrowing as she took in the scene. "Chief Technician Zara," Astra breathed, recognizing the Kobali engineer. The tense standoff was shattered by a violent surge from the energy vortex. Equipment around the room sparked and sputtered, screens cracking and alarms blaring to life. "We don't have time for explanations," Derek shouted over the cacophony. "That vortex contains our child, a human Kobali hybrid. If we don't stabilize it now, we risk losing not just a child, but potentially this entire facility." Major Volkov's eyes darted between Derek, the unstable vortex, and Chief Technician Zara. After a moment of tense deliberation, she lowered her weapon. "A temporary truce, then. What do you need?" "Space to work," Dr. Ramos said, already unpacking her monitoring equipment. "And access to the reactor's power systems." Agent Krell stepped forward, producing his stabilization device. "I need to interface this with the core. It's our best chance at containing the vortex." As the two groups warily lowered their weapons, ZYX and his hybrid companions formed a protective circle around the vortex. Their advanced abilities created shimmering barriers, containing the worst of the energy surges. Derek watched as Dr. Ramos and Agent Krell worked feverishly, their movements a blur of focused intensity. Suddenly, a jolt of energy coursed through his body, nearly bringing him to his knees. The world around him faded away, replaced by a swirling vortex of light and sensation. Within the chaos, Derek felt a presence, small, fragile, but pulsing with potential. The embryo. Somehow, he could sense its needs, its struggles to stabilize itself within the maelstrom of energy. "Astra," he called out, his voice sounding distant to his own ears. "I need your help." She was at his side in an instant, her hand clasping his. The moment they touched, the connection intensified. Together, they focused their combined energy, channeling it into the vortex. The wild fluctuations began to smooth out, the violent surges becoming more rhythmic. "It's working," Dr. Ramos exclaimed, her eyes fixed on her monitors. "But we need more power. The reactor's straining to keep up." Chief Technician Zara pushed past the doctor, her long fingers dancing across the reactor's control interface. "I'm initiating emergency protocols," she announced, rerouting power from non-essential systems. The lights throughout the chamber dimmed, then flickered out entirely. For a heart-stopping moment, darkness engulfed them. Then, with a low hum, emergency lighting bathed the room in a soft red glow. In that moment of disorientation, a shadow detached itself from the wall. Sergeant Graves lunged towards the stabilization device, his face contorted with desperation. "We can't let this happen," he shouted. But ZYX was faster. The hybrid leader phased through the air, rematerializing directly in Graves' path. With a swift movement, he disarmed the sergeant, sending him sprawling to the floor. "The future cannot be denied," ZYX said softly, his eyes filled with an ancient wisdom. As power flowed back into the systems, the vortex began to expand rapidly. It pulsed with a blinding light, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. "It's entering the final stage," Dr. Ramos shouted over the increasing roar of energy. "We need more power." Major Volkov stepped forward, her face set with persistence. "Divert power from all non-essential systems across the entire base," she ordered into her comm unit. "Authorization Volkov Alpha 79. The chamber trembled as massive amounts of energy were redirected into the reactor core. The vortex swelled, filling the room with swirling tendrils of light. At its center, a form began to take shape, small, humanoid, glowing with an otherworldly radiance. "It's happening," Astra whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. Suddenly, a violent surge rocked the chamber. Control panels exploded in showers of sparks, and a stray bolt of energy struck Derek squarely in the chest. He stumbled backward, teetering on the edge of an open maintenance shaft. Time seemed to slow as Derek felt himself falling. Then, a hand grasped Astra's hand. With strength born of desperation, she pulled him back from the brink, their bodies colliding as they fell to safety. As they lay there, breathless and trembling, the vortex reached its crescendo. With a final, blinding flash, it collapsed inward. The light faded, revealing a small figure floating gently in the air where the vortex had been. The hybrid child opened its eyes, a perfect blend of human and Kobali features. Its gaze fell upon Derek and Astra, creating an instant, unbreakable bond. The moment of wonder was interrupted by the sound of a door sliding open. Ambassador Zorn strode into the chamber, flanked by a contingent of high-ranking human officials. His eyes widened as he took in the scene before him. "What in the name of all that's holy has happened here?" the ambassador demanded, his voice a mixture of awe and trepidation. As the newborn hybrid child gently descended into Derek's waiting arms, the various factions in the room eyed each other warily. The immediate crisis had passed, but the implications of what had just occurred were only beginning to unfold. Major Volkov stepped forward, her posture rigid. "Ambassador, I believe we have a lot to discuss." Chief Technician Zara moved to stand beside her, a rare show of unity between human and Kobali. "Indeed we do. The future of both our species may well hinge on what happens next." Derek cradled the hybrid child close to his chest, feeling its steady heartbeat against his own. He looked at Astra, then at the assembled group of humans, Kobali, and hybrids. The child in his arms represented hope, but also uncertainty. As the various factions began to gather around them, Derek knew that the most challenging part of their journey was just beginning. As the various factions began to gather around them, Derek knew that the most challenging part of their journey was just starting. The newborn hybrid child floated gently in the center of the reactor chamber, bathing the room in a soft, warm glow. Its perfect blend of human and Kobali features left everyone momentarily stunned. Derek and Astra, their hands still clasped from their near fall, felt an inexorable pull towards their offspring. Ambassador Zorn and the high-ranking human officials approached cautiously, their faces a mixture of awe and apprehension. Dr. Ramos, ever the pragmatist, sprang into action. She activated a portable stasis field, enveloping the child in a shimmering bubble of energy. "This will ensure the infant's safety during the descent," she explained, her eyes never leaving her instruments. As the stasis field took effect, the child began to lower gently. Astra stepped forward, her arms outstretched. The moment the infant settled into her embrace, a surge of energy coursed through her body. She gasped, her eyes widening in surprise. Derek, driven by an instinct he couldn't explain, placed his hand on the child. A similar jolt of energy passed through him, and he watched in amazement as the skin began to shimmer with an iridescent sheen, matching the luminescence of their offspring. The transformation didn't go unnoticed. Colonel Reeves' voice cut through the awed silence, sharp and authoritative. "This is Colonel Reeves. I'm declaring a base-wide state of emergency. All non-essential personnel are to evacuate Nexus. 7 immediately. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." Chaos erupted as alarms blared throughout the station. The sound of running feet and shouted orders filtered in from the corridors outside the reactor chamber. Amidst the growing pandemonium, Chief Technician Zara's voice rose in alarm. "The reactor core is destabilizing. The energy expenditure during the birthing process has pushed it beyond safe parameters." Her fingers flew over the control panels, but each attempt to contain the impending meltdown was met with failure. Frustration and fear warred on her face as she turned to the others. "I can't stop it. We're looking at a catastrophic overload." Agent Krell stepped forward, his expression grim but determined. "There might be a way," he said, his eyes fixed on the hybrid child. "The infant's energy signature is unique. If we can harness it, we might be able to stabilize the core." A heavy silence fell over the group as the implications of his words sank in. Derek tightened his hold on Astra and the child, his newly transformed skin glowing brightly. "What are the risks?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Ramos shook her head, her face etched with concern. "Unknown. This could potentially harm the child or alter its development in ways we can't predict." ZYX and his fellow future hybrids moved closer, forming a protective circle around Derek, Astra, and the infant. "We may be able to help," ZYX offered. "Our abilities could mitigate some of the risks to the child." As the group debated their limited options, the reactor core grew increasingly unstable. Equipment sparked and sputtered, and the floor beneath their feet began to tremble. Suddenly, Sergeant Graves pushed his way to the front of the group. His face, usually set in lines of suspicion, now showed a mix of resignation and commitment. "I'll help," he said gruffly. "I know this base's systems better than anyone. If we're going to pull this off, you'll need me." Derek and Astra exchanged a long look, an entire conversation passing between them without a word. Finally, Astra nodded. "We have to try," she said softly. "For everyone on this station." As they moved towards the heart of the reactor core, the infant in Astra's arms began to exhibit extraordinary abilities. Small energy fields formed around it, extending to encompass its parents. The shimmering barriers deflected the increasing radiation, protecting the trio from harm. Ambassador Zorn watched the display with a mix of fascination and trepidation. He turned to his communications officer. "Contact the Kobali homeworld immediately. Request emergency assistance. We need every resource at our disposal." The reactor chamber became a flurry of activity. Sergeant Graves and Chief Technician Zara worked in tandem, their previous animosity forgotten in the face of the crisis. They rerouted power systems and bypassed safety protocols, preparing the reactor for the stabilization attempt. Dr. Ramos set up a portable medical station, her eyes darting between her equipment and the hybrid family. "I'm ready to monitor the child's vital signs," she called out. "At the first sign of danger, we abort." Agent Krell stood nearby, his advanced technology at the ready. "I'll intervene if the energy levels become too erratic," he assured the others. As Derek and Astra took their position at the heart of the reactor core, the future hybrids formed a protective circle around them. Energy crackled in the air, making hair stand on end and causing the metallic surfaces in the room to vibrate. The reactor's core pulsed an angry red, its energy levels spiking dangerously. Just as it seemed the entire station might be torn apart, the hybrid child's eyes snapped open. They glowed with an intense light, and suddenly, energy began to flow from the infant. It passed through Derek and Astra, their bodies acting as conduits, before surging into the unstable reactor. The future hybrids channeled their own energies, amplifying the effect. A cascading wave of power rippled through Nexus 7 systems, causing lights to flicker and computers to reboot across the entire station. For a heart-stopping moment, the reactor's energy levels continued to climb. The chamber shook violently, and several of the onlookers lost their footing. Then, miraculously, the levels began to stabilize. The angry red glow of the core softened to a steady, pulsing blue that perfectly matched the rhythm of the hybrid child's heartbeat. As the immediate danger passed, an eerie calm settled over the chamber. Derek and Astra stood motionless, still linked to their child and the reactor core by tendrils of shimmering energy. The future hybrids maintained their protective circle, their faces etched with concentration. Dr. Ramos was the first to break the silence. "The child's vital signs are stable," she announced, her voice filled with relief and wonder. "But there's something else. These readings. They're unlike anything I've ever seen." Chief Technician Zara nodded, her multifaceted eyes wide as she studied the reactor's control panel. "The energy released during the stabilization process has fundamentally altered Nexus 7 systems. It's as if the station itself has been hybridized." Ambassador Zorn stepped forward, his face a mask of carefully controlled emotion. "What exactly are you saying, Chief Technician?" Zara looked up, her gaze moving from the ambassador to Derek and Astra, still cradling their now-sleeping child. "I'm saying that this hybrid infant has become intrinsically linked to Nexus 7. Its life force is now the heart of the station's operations." The implications of her words hung heavy in the air. The crisis had been averted, but at what cost? And more importantly, what would happen next? As if in answer to the unspoken question, a communication officer burst into the chamber. "Ambassador," he said breathlessly, "we're receiving urgent transmissions from both Earth and the Kobali homeworld. They're demanding explanations and making preparations to send ships." Derek and Astra shared another look, exhaustion and uncertainty warring with the fierce protectiveness they felt for their child. Around them, humans, Kobali, and hybrids alike began to stir, the weight of what had transpired finally setting in. The hybrid child slept on, unaware that its very existence had just reshaped the future of two species and ignited a storm that would sweep across the galaxy. For Derek and Astra, their journey as parents to this extraordinary being was only just beginning, and the challenges they would face were beyond anything they could have imagined. As the gravity of the situation settled over the room, a tense calm descended upon Nexus 7. In the days that followed, Derek and Astra found themselves grappling with their newfound parental responsibilities while the station around them underwent unprecedented changes. They named their child Nova, a fitting moniker for the luminous being that had reshaped their world. The reactor chamber, once a hub of frantic activity, now pulsed with a steady, azure glow that matched Nova's heartbeat. Chief Technician Zara worked tirelessly at her console, her multifaceted eyes widening as she observed the station's systems evolving in real time. "It's remarkable," she murmured, gesturing for Dr. Ramos to join her. "The hybridization process isn't limited to Nova. It's spreading throughout Nexus 7's infrastructure." Dr. Ramos leaned in, her brow furrowing as she studied the readings. "These energy patterns, they're unlike anything in our databases. It's as if the station itself is adapting, becoming a hybrid entity." Their observations were soon confirmed, as strange occurrences began to manifest throughout Nexus 7. In the hydroponics bay, tropical plants sprouted overnight, their vibrant foliage contrasting sharply with the sterile metal walls. Meanwhile, the recreation area developed a thin layer of frost, the temperature plummeting to near-Arctic levels. Sergeant Graves, tasked with overseeing the evacuation of non-essential personnel, found himself constantly rerouting teams to avoid these environmental anomalies. "It's like navigating a damned jungle, and tundra rolled into one," he grumbled into his comm unit. "Graves to control, we need updated environmental schematics." Sector 7 just turned into a sauna. As the station's crew struggled to adapt to their changing surroundings, Derek and Astra focused on Nova. The child's growth was exponential, its features shifting and maturing at an alarming rate. Within a week, Nova had reached a developmental stage equivalent to a human toddler, much to Dr. Ramos's concern. "This rate of maturation is unprecedented," she explained, running another series of scans on the child. "Nova's cellular structure is in a constant state of flux, adapting and evolving faster than we can track." Derek watched as Nova toddled across the medbay, leaving a trail of softly glowing footprints in its wake. He felt a surge of pride mingled with apprehension. Is Nova healthy?" he asked, his voice tinged with worry. Dr. Ramos nodded, though her expression remained guarded. "As far as we can tell, yes. But we're in uncharted territory here. There's no way to predict how this accelerated growth might affect Nova in the long term." As if in response to their concerns, Nova turned and smiled, a gesture that sent a ripple of energy through the room. The medbay's equipment hummed to life, interfaces flickering and reconfiguring themselves into sleek, hybrid designs that merge human and Kobali technology seamlessly. Astra gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "I felt that," she whispered, looking at Derek with wide eyes. "It was like a part of me responded to Nova's energy." Derek nodded, understanding all too well. His own body had been undergoing changes since Nova's birth. His skin now shimmered with a faint, iridescent sheen, and he found himself capable of feats of strength that would have been impossible just days ago. Their moment of shared wonder was interrupted by the urgent voice of Ambassador Zorn over the station-wide comm system. "Attention all personnel. We received word from the Kobali homeworld. A fleet of ships is en route to Nexus 7. Their stated purpose is to provide assistance, but we have reason to believe their intentions may be complicated." Colonel Reeves's voice cut in, sharp and authoritative. "This is Colonel Reeves. In light of this development, I'm initiating emergency defense protocols. All security personnel report to your designated stations. Sergeant Graves, I want a mixed human Kobali security detail assigned to protect Nova and our critical systems." As the station buzzed with renewed activity, Agent Krell approached Derek and Astra, his expression grave. "We need to talk," he said, gesturing for them to follow him to a more private area. "The future hybrids have shared some crucial information about Nova's role in preventing the war we came back to stop." Derek and Astra exchanged a look, their hands instinctively reaching for each other as they prepared to face yet another challenge in their extraordinary journey. As they followed Agent Krell, Nova toddled after them, each step leaving a trail of shimmering energy that seemed to pulse in sync with the very heart of Nexus 7. The station, once a bastion of human scientific endeavor, now stood as a testament to the unpredictable nature of hybridization. Its corridors hummed with newfound energy, a living embodiment of the union between human and Kobali. And at its center, a child named Nova held the key to a future that hung precariously in the balance. As they gathered to hear Agent Krell's revelation, the long-range sensors of Nexus 7 detected an anomaly, an unknown object hurtling towards them at impossible speeds. The next chapter in their saga was about to unfold, bringing with it challenges that would test the limits of their newfound hybrid nature and the bonds they had forged in the crucible of Nexus 7. The unknown object's rapid approach set off a cascade of alarms throughout Nexus 7, adding to the already tense atmosphere. Colonel Reeves's voice crackled over the intercom, his tone urgent but controlled. "All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Derek and Astra exchanged worried glances as they hurried towards the command center, Nova toddling between them. The child's growth had been exponential in the mere hours since the reactor incident. Its features now a perfect blend of human and Cobali characteristics. As they entered the bustling nerve center of Nexus 7, they were met with a scene of controlled chaos. Officers and technicians moved with purpose, their voices a constant hum of updates and commands. At the center of it all stood Colonel Reeves, his face illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. "Report," he barked as Derek and Astra approached. Chief Technician Zara's multifaceted eyes darted across her console. "The object is unlike anything we've encountered. Sir, its energy signature is. It's similar to Nova's." As if on cue, Nova's eyes began to glow, tendrils of energy snaking out from the child's body. The command center systems flickered, screens distorting before snapping back into focus. "Nova, what's wrong?" Astra asked, kneeling beside her child. Nova's voice, when it came, seemed to bypass their ears entirely, resonating directly in their minds. "It's calling to me, Mom. The big thing out there. It's alive." Before anyone could respond, a new voice cut through the din. "I want a full assessment of our defensive capabilities now." All eyes turned to the entrance, where a woman in an admiral's uniform strode in, her presence immediately commanding attention. Colonel Reeves snapped to attention. "Admiral Voss, I wasn't aware you were en route." "The situation warranted my personal attention, Colonel," Admiral Helena Voss replied, her resolute expression sweeping the room before settling on Nova. "And it seems I arrived just in time. What's the status of our hybrid guest?" Derek stepped forward, positioning himself between the Admiral and his child. "Nova is not a guest, Admiral. This is our child, and potentially our greatest asset," Voss interrupted, her eyes narrowing. "Or our greatest liability. The reports I've received suggest your child possesses abilities that could be instrumental in defending the station." Ambassador Zorn, who had been quietly observing from the corner, stepped forward. "Admiral, with all due respect, we cannot consider using a child as a weapon. The diplomatic ramifications alone " "Diplomatic ramifications?" Voss scoffed. "Ambassador, we're facing an unknown threat and a Cobali fleet of unknown intentions. Diplomacy may be a luxury we cannot afford." As the argument escalated, Nova's glow intensified. Screens across the command center began to flicker more violently, and a low hum filled the air. "Mom, Dad." Nova's voice echoed in Derek and Astra's minds. "I can feel it getting closer. It's so powerful." Suddenly, the main viewport erupted in a blinding flash of light. As the glare faded, the assembled crew gasped. Hanging in space before them was a massive structure, its surface etched with intricate patterns that pulsed with energy. "By the stars," Dr. Ramos breathed, her eyes wide. "Those energy signatures. They're almost identical to Nova's." As if in response to her words, Nova's body began to levitate, surrounded by a cocoon of shimmering energy. The child's features seemed to blur, shifting rapidly as if years were passing in seconds. "Nova!" Astra cried out, reaching for her child but stopped short by the intense energy field. Derek turned to Admiral Voss, his eyes pleading. "We need to protect Nova, not use our child as a weapon. There has to be another way." Before Voss could respond, alarms blared once more. Chief Technician Zara's voice cut through the chaos. "Multiple ships dropping out of FDL. It's the Cobali fleet, and they're much larger than we anticipated." The viewport filled with the sight of dozens of Cobali vessels, their sleek designs a stark contrast to the ancient artifact that hung motionless in space. Admiral Voss's face hardened. "We're out of options. Initiate lockdown protocols. I want that child secured and prepped for defensive measures. No! Derek and Astra shouted in unison, but their protests were drowned out by the sound of emergency bulkheads slamming into place. In the confusion, Derek felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Agent Krell, the future hybrid's eyes darting meaningfully towards a service corridor. Understanding dawned on Derek's face. He grabbed Astra's hand and, in one swift motion, scooped up the still-glowing Nova. We need to go now. As alarms blared and security teams mobilized, Derek and Astra slipped into the service corridor, their hearts pounding. Behind them, they could hear Admiral Voss barking orders, her voice growing fainter as they raced deeper into the bowels of Nexus 7. The station shuddered around them, the artifact's energy interfering with systems in unpredictable ways. Ahead, they could see other future hybrids creating distractions, buying them precious seconds. Where are we going? Astra panted as they rounded another corner. Derek's eyes glowed faintly as he accessed his newly enhanced senses. There's a secure area near the secondary reactor. If we can reach it, we might be able to protect Nova long enough to figure out our next move. As they ran, Nova's body continued to change, the child's form elongating, features maturing at an alarming rate. By the time they reached the sealed doors of their destination, Nova appeared to be on the cusp of adolescence. Derek placed his hand on the access panel, his hybrid physiology interfacing with the station systems. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a room humming with energy. No sooner had they entered than Nova's eyes snapped open, now glowing with an intensity that rivaled the station's reactor core. "They're here," Nova said, voice resonating with newfound power. "Both the artifact and the Kobali. And they're all looking for me." Outside, the Kobali fleet moved into position around Nexus 7, their intentions still unclear. The artifact pulsed with increasing intensity, its energy signature growing stronger by the second. In the command center, Admiral Voss stared at the tactical display, her expression resolute in steadfast perseverance. "Find that child," she ordered. "The fate of this station, perhaps of both our species, depends on it." As security teams fanned out across Nexus 7, Derek and Astra huddled around their rapidly maturing child, the weight of an interstellar crisis bearing down upon them. The next few moments would determine not just their fate, but potentially the course of human-Kobali relations for generations to come. The words had barely left Nova's lips when a blinding flash engulfed Nexus 7. The artifact's energy pulse slammed into the station, overloading systems and plunging everything into darkness. Derek felt a surge of panic as the room went pitch black, but it quickly subsided as a soft, blue glow emanated from Nova. A translucent energy bubble formed around them, pulsing with the same otherworldly power that now coursed through their child. Nova, now appearing as a young teenager, looked at them with eyes that held wisdom beyond their years. "We need to move," Nova said, voice steady despite the chaos. "I can guide us." Derek nodded, exchanging a quick glance with Astra. They had no choice but to trust their rapidly maturing child. As they stepped into the darkened corridor, the energy bubble moved with them, providing both light and protection. Alarms blared sporadically as emergency power struggled to come online. They navigated through the maze of corridors, Nova seemingly drawn by an invisible force. After several tense minutes of avoiding panicked crew members and malfunctioning doors, they found themselves in a seldom-used maintenance bay. "There," Derek said, pointing to an old shuttle tucked away in the corner. "It's decommissioned, but I might be able to get it running." As Derek set to work on the shuttle systems, Astra turned to a nearby console. "I'll try to buy us some time," she said, her fingers flying over the interface as she tapped into her Kobali knowledge. Within moments, false alarms began triggering across the station. Astra smiled grimly as she watched the confusion spread on the security feeds. Nova stood watch, the energy bubble expanding to encompass the shuttle. Suddenly, the teenagers' form shimmered, and 3 identical copies appeared. Holograms, Nova explained, seeing the surprise on their faces. They'll lead the search parties away from us. As the holographic duplicates dispersed, Derek emerged from the shuttle's cockpit, his face streaked with grease. I've got it powered up, but I don't know how long it'll hold together. A commotion in the corridor outside caught their attention. Sergeant Graves' voice carried through the door, barking orders to his team. The family froze, eyes locked on the entrance. The door slid open, and Graves stepped in, weapon raised. His eyes widened as he took in the scene before him. Derek and Astra poised to defend their child, Nova's energy bubble shimmering around them, and the old shuttle humming to life behind them. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, to everyone's surprise, Graves lowered his weapon. I can't do it, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I won't be the one to tear a family apart, no matter the orders. Relief washed over Derek's face. Thank you, Sergeant. Graves nodded curtly. Go. I'll hold them off as long as I can. As they boarded the shuttle, the station shuddered violently. Nova stumbled, clutching their head. The artifact. It's moving. I can feel it. Through the bay's view screen, they watched in awe as the massive structure aligned itself with Nexus 7's main docking bay. The gravitational disturbance sent tools and equipment flying across the maintenance bay. Derek fired up the shuttle's engines, the old vessel groaning in protest. As they prepared to launch, Nova gasped, their eyes glowing with an intense light. I see it, they whispered. A future where humans and Kobali live in harmony, where hybrids like me bridge the gap between our species. Before Derek or Astra could respond, Nova's power surged. The shuttle's communications array crackled to life, broadcasting the vision to every corner of Nexus 7 and beyond. For a brief moment, all conflict ceased. Humans and Kobali alike stood transfixed by the possibility of peace. In this window of opportunity, Derek guided the shuttle out of the maintenance bay and into open space. As they cleared Nexus 7's immediate vicinity, a swirling vortex of energy erupted near the station's docking bay. The shuttle's sensors went haywire, struggling to make sense of the phenomenon. It's some kind of faster-than-light anomaly, Astra said, her voice filled with wonder and trepidation. But we have no way of knowing where it leads. Derek's hands tightened on the controls as he surveyed their options. Behind them, Nexus 7 was slowly regaining power. The Kobali fleet had resumed its approach, and long-range sensors showed another group of ships closing in, likely the rogue human and Kobali vessels drawn by rumors of Nova's existence. We can't go back, Nova said, their gaze fixed on the swirling vortex. Whatever's on the other side of that portal, it's calling to me. It's where we need to go. Derek and Astra shared a look, years of trust and shared experiences passing between them in an instant. They both knew that staying meant facing forces that would stop at nothing to control their child. The vortex, as dangerous as it was, offered a chance at freedom, and perhaps answers to the questions that had plagued them since Nova's birth. Hold on tight, Derek said, setting a course for the energy vortex. The old shuttle groaned as it accelerated, pushing its ancient systems to the limit. As they approached the swirling mass of energy, Nova's power flared once more. The shuttle's hull began to glow with the same ethereal light that surrounded their child. Whatever happens, Astra said, reaching out to hold both Derek and Nova's hands, we face it together. With a final burst of speed, the shuttle plunged into the heart of the vortex. In a flash of blinding light, they vanished from known space, leaving behind a stunned audience on Nexus 7 and a host of unanswered questions about the future of human-Kobali relations. As the energy vortex collapsed behind them, Derek, Astra, and Nova found themselves hurtling through an unknown realm. the mysteries of the artifact, and their own hybrid nature yet to be unraveled. Their journey, it seemed, was a long way to go. Suddenly, the vortex expanded, engulfing their shuttle in a maelstrom of energy. The family's decision was made for them as they were pulled inexorably into the swirling mass. "Hold on!" Derek shouted, gripping the controls as the shuttle shuddered violently. The view screen filled with iridescent light, systems blaring warnings as energy overloaded their circuits. Astra wrapped her arms protectively around Nova, whose body pulsed with an answering glow. In a disorienting flash, they emerged into unknown space. As the light faded, their jaws dropped at the sight before them. A massive space station of clearly alien design dominated their view, dwarfing their tiny shuttle. At its center floated the artifact, serene and untouched by their tumultuous journey. "By the stars," Astra breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. Nova stood, now resembling a young adult, body humming with newfound energy. I can feel it," they said, voice filled with awe. "The station, it's alive with information." Derek worked to stabilize the shuttle systems, bringing them alongside a docking port that seemed to beckon them. As they connected, Nova's eyes glowed with an intense light. Their hands moved over the shuttle's console, interfacing directly with the station's systems. "It's incredible," Nova murmured, information flooding their mind. This station, the artifact. They were created by an ancient race. They saw the potential for conflict between humans and Kobali. They wanted to help. Astra placed a comforting hand on Nova's shoulder, concern etched on her face. "Help how?" Nova turned, eyes brimming with newfound knowledge. "By guiding the evolution of hybrids like me. We're meant to be a bridge between our species." As Nova explored their connection to the station, Derek and Astra set about assessing their situation. They discovered observation technology that allowed them to watch events unfolding back at Nexus 7. "Look," Derek said, pointing to a holographic display. "The Kobali fleet is engaging in a standoff with the station." They watched as Admiral Zorn's ships took up aggressive positions. On Nexus 7, Admiral Voss ordered battle stations, her face grim with purpose. "She thinks we've stolen hybrid technology," Astra said, her voice tight with worry. The situation grew more complex as a rogue human and Kobali ships arrived, adding to the powder keg of competing interests. Their observations were interrupted by the arrival of a small ship. It docked smoothly with the station, and to their surprise, Dr. Alara Ramos emerged. "Dr. Ramos?" Derek asked, incredulous. "How did you find us?" The scientist's eyes sparkled with excitement. "I tracked the artifact's energy signature. I couldn't let you face this alone." Her arrival proved invaluable as they began to decipher the vast stores of information within the station. They uncovered advanced medical and genetic engineering technology capable of stabilizing and enhancing hybrid physiology. Nova, driven by an instinctive understanding, entered a chamber filled with swirling energy tendrils. The family watched in awe as Nova's body absorbed the energy, triggering a final transformation. When Nova emerged, they stood tall and confident, eyes shining with the combined knowledge of human, Kobali, and the precursor race that had created the station. "I understand now," Nova said, voice resonating with power. "Our purpose, the station's purpose. We can bring peace." As if responding to Nova's words, the station activated a long-dormant communication array. A subspace message burst forth, reaching Nexus 7 and the assembled fleets. The message contained coordinates to the ancient station and an invitation for representatives to convene for peaceful negotiations. Derek and Astra shared a look of pride and trepidation. Their child, now fully grown, stood at the center of a pivotal moment in history. "We need to prepare," Astra said, her mind already racing with diplomatic protocols. Dr. Ramos nodded eagerly. I'll start analyzing the station's capabilities. We need to understand everything it can offer for these negotiations. Their preparations were cut short as the station's sensors blared a warning. Multiple ships were entering the system. "It's ZYX," Nova exclaimed, recognizing the energy signature of the lead vessel. "The other future hybrids managed to track us." Close behind ZYX's ship came vessels from Nexus 7, the Kobali fleet, and the Rogue factions. They converged on the ancient station, weapons primed and tensions high. Derek's hands tightened on the console. So much for preparation. Looks like we're going to have to mediate on the fly. Nova stepped forward, body glowing with ethereal light. "We can do this. We have to. The future of both our species depends on it." As the ships drew closer, the families steeled themselves for the challenge ahead. The ancient station hummed with awakened power, ready to serve as the stage for a confrontation that would shape the course of human and Kobali history. As the ships drew closer, the families steeled themselves for the challenge ahead. The ancient station hummed with awakened power, ready to serve as the stage for a confrontation that would shape the course of human and Kobali relations. Nova stepped forward, a newfound persistence radiating from their transformed being. With a gesture, they activated the station's advanced communication systems, sending out a powerful broadcast to all approaching vessels. "Attention all ships." Nova's voice resonated through space, carrying a weight of authority that belied their youth. "This is Nova, speaking from the ancient precursor station. We request your peaceful assembly aboard. Coordinates for a suitable docking bay are being transmitted now." Derek and Astra exchanged glances, a mix of pride and apprehension in their eyes. Dr. Ramos nodded approvingly, her scientific curiosity piqued by the station's capabilities. "We need to prepare," Astra said, her diplomatic instincts kicking in. "There's no telling how they'll react when they arrive." Derek nodded, already moving towards a nearby console. "I'll see what I can do about setting up a conference area. This station must have something suitable." As the family worked tirelessly to prepare, the first ships began to dock. The massive bay easily accommodated vessels from all factions, a testament to the precursor's foresight. Admiral Helena Voss led the human delegation from Nexus 7, her face a mask of stern persistence as she stepped onto the station. Colonel Reeves followed close behind, his hand never straying far from his sidearm. The Kobali fleet's representative, Admiral Zorn, emerged from his ship, his eyes widening as he caught sight of a familiar face among the Nexus 7 group, his brother, Ambassador Zorn. The two locked eyes for a moment, years of unspoken history passing between them. Jack Hawthorne, a grizzled human mercenary captain, swaggered into the bay, his demeanor a stark contrast to the official delegates. Beside him walked Dr. Lyra Vex, a Kobali scientist whose curiosity seemed to outweigh any apprehension she might have felt. Last to arrive were ZYX and the future hybrids, their presence sending a ripple of unease through the assembled groups. Their advanced abilities were evident in the graceful way they moved, each step purposeful and measured. As the delegates made their way to the hastily prepared conference area, Nova stood at its center, their body glowing with a soft, ethereal light. Derek and Astra flanked their child, presenting a united front. "Welcome," Nova began, their voice carrying easily across the room. "We stand at a crossroads of history with the power to shape the future of both our species." With a wave of their hand, Nova conjured a holographic display that filled the air above the delegates' heads. The station's history unfolded before their eyes, images of the precursor race, their hopes, and their vision for a united future between humans and Kobali. As the presentation continued, Dr. Ramos noticed something odd. The artifact, still present in the heart of the station, was pulsing with increasing intensity. She leaned close to Derek and Astra, whispering urgently, "The artifact. Its energy readings are spiking. We should keep an eye on it." The couple nodded, their attention split between Nova's impassioned speech and the potentially volatile situation developing around them. Admiral Voss was the first to break the awed silence that followed Nova's presentation. "This technology is beyond anything we've seen," she said, her voice sharp with barely concealed desire. "Humanity needs access to these advancements to ensure our survival and growth." Admiral Zorn bristled at her words. "The Kobali have a far greater claim to this knowledge," he countered. "Our understanding of genetic manipulation makes us better suited to utilize it responsibly." Jack Hawthorne let out a harsh laugh. "Responsible use? That's rich coming from both of you. This station should be open to all. Let the best and brightest make use of it, regardless of species." As the debate escalated, the artifact's pulsations grew more pronounced. Nova, still connected to the station's systems, felt a surge of energy building to dangerous levels. "Wait," Nova called out, trying to interrupt the increasingly heated arguments. "Something's happening with the dash." Their warning came too late. A massive wave of energy erupted from the artifact, washing over everyone present. The conference room erupted into chaos as delegates stumbled, overwhelmed by a flood of foreign sensations and memories. Humans gasped as they suddenly understood the intricacies of Kobali's social structures and the driving force behind their need to propagate. Kobali reeled from the intensity of human emotions, experiencing the full spectrum of individuality that defined the human experience. In the midst of this empathetic maelstrom, the artifact began to change. Its solid form shifted and twisted, reconfiguring into a series of interconnected rings that started to rotate around a central axis. The station responded to this transformation, long-dormant systems springing to life. Energy conduits throughout the structure lit up, channeling immense power towards the altered artifact. Derek and Astra fought through their own disorientation, their parental instincts driving them to reach Nova. They found their child strain, standing transfixed, their eyes wide with a mixture of awe and terror. The artifact's pulsations reached a fever pitch, and suddenly, the station shuddered violently. A blinding flash of light engulfed the conference room, momentarily robbing everyone of their vision. As sight slowly returned, gasps of astonishment filled the air. Where once stood the artifact, a series of interconnected rings now rotated around a central axis, crackling with energy. The station itself seemed to come alive, dormant systems awakening in response to the artifact's transformation. Energy conduits throughout the structure blazed with power, all converging on the altered artifact. Nova, still connected to the station's systems, let out a cry of surprise and pain. Their body began to flicker and distort, overwhelmed by the surge of energy coursing through the station. "Nova!" Derek and Astra cried out in unison, rushing to their child's side. Dr. Ramos quickly scanned Nova with a handheld device, her face growing pale as she interpreted the readings. "The energy flowing through the station is destabilizing Nova's molecular structure," she announced, her voice tight with urgency. "If we don't do something quickly, they'll be torn apart at the atomic level." Without hesitation, Derek scooped up Nova in his arms. "The medical bay," he said, locking eyes with Astra. "It's our only chance." As they raced through the station's corridors, the structure continued to shake and pulse with energy. Behind them, they could hear the raised voices of the delegates, arguing over the implications of what was happening. They burst into the medical bay, Nova's form now flickering so rapidly it was hard to focus on them. Dr. Ramos rushed to a control panel, her fingers flying over the alien interface. "We need to stabilize their genetic structure," she muttered, more to herself than to the others. "The station's technology is far beyond anything I've seen, but the principles should be similar." A cylindrical chamber in the center of the room hummed to life, its interior glowing with a soft blue light. Derek gently placed Nova inside, his hand lingering for a moment on their shoulder. "Stay with us, kiddo," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Astra joined him at the chamber's entrance, her eyes never leaving Nova's face. "We're right here, Nova. We're not going anywhere." As Dr. Ramos initiated the procedure, Nova's body was enveloped in a cocoon of swirling energy. The family watched, hearts pounding, as the hybrid's form seemed to dissolve and reform repeatedly within the protective field. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The station's shaking intensified, and alarms began to blare throughout the structure. Dr. Ramos worked feverishly at the controls, making constant adjustments to counteract the network's influence on Nova's physiology. Suddenly, a violent tremor rocked the station, nearly knocking them off their feet. The lights flickered, and for a heart-stopping moment, the energy cocoon surrounding Nova wavered. "No!" Astra cried out, reaching instinctively towards the chamber. But just as quickly, the power stabilized. The cocoon intensified, becoming so bright they had to shield their eyes. When the light finally faded, they looked back to see Nova floating within the chamber, transformed. Where once there had been a solid form, now there was a being composed of swirling energy. A vaguely humanoid shape was visible within the maelstrom, pulsing in time with the station's power core. Nova's eyes opened, revealing orbs of pure, radiant light. "Nova!" Derek called out, his voice barely above a whisper. The energy being turned towards him, a smile forming on her ethereal face. "Dad!" Nova's voice echoed, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Mom, I'm okay." Dr. Ramos's scanner beeped insistently. She studied the readout, her eyes widening in amazement. "Incredible," she breathed. "Nova has become a living conduit for the precursor network. They're perfectly integrated with the station systems now." As if to demonstrate this new connection, Nova raised a hand. The tremors racking the station immediately ceased, and the alarms fell silent. Through the medical bay's viewport, they could see the newly formed wormholes stabilizing, their chaotic flickers smoothing into steady portals. "I can feel it all," Nova said, wonder evident in their voice. "The entire network, spreading across the galaxy. It's beautiful." Derek and Astra exchanged a look of mixed joy and concern. Their child was alive but forever changed. As they grappled with the implications of Nova's transformation, the comm system crackled to life. "This is Colonel Reeves," a stern voice announced. "The rogue factions have been contained, but we have a situation developing in the main conference room. We need Nova and the science team there immediately." Nova nodded, their form rippling with tenacity. "I'm on my way," they replied, their voice resonating through the station systems. As they made their way back to the conference room, Derek and Astra walked close to Nova, still instinctively protective despite their child's new form. They entered to find a scene of organized chaos. Admiral Voss and Admiral Zorn stood at the center of the room, surrounded by a hastily assembled team of human and Kobali scientists. Holographic displays filled the air, showing the status of the wormhole network stretching across the galaxy. "Nova," Admiral Voss called out, her usual stern demeanor softened by a hint of awe at the hybrid's new appearance. "We need your help to stabilize the network. Can you interface with the station systems and give us real-time data on the wormhole fluctuations?" Nova nodded, their forms shimmering as they connected more deeply with the station. The holographic displays came alive with new information, streams of data flowing faster than the human eye could follow. As the joint human-Kobali team worked to stabilize the network, ZYX and the other future hybrids approached Derek and Astra. "We've done what we came to do," ZYX said, his eyes fixed on Nova's glowing form. "The timeline has been altered. Our future, it no longer exists." Astra's brow furrowed in concern. "What will happen to you?" ZYX smiled, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "We'll return to our own time, but to a future that's yet to be written. The choices made here in the coming days will determine whether this new era leads to peace or conflict. As the future hybrids prepared to depart, the newly formed wormhole network pulsed with energy. Nova turned to their parents, their radiant eyes filled with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. "I can feel ships approaching," they said, their voice echoing with the vastness of space. "From both human and Kobali worlds. They're coming to see, to explore." Derek and Astra shared a look, realizing that their roles had suddenly become much larger than they had ever imagined. They were now the parents of a being integral to the future of two species, standing at the threshold of a new era of galactic exploration and diplomacy. As the first ships began to emerge from the wormholes, Nova's form pulsed with renewed energy. The ancient station, once dormant for millennia, now stood as a beacon of possibility, with Nova at its heart. The next chapter in human and Kobali history was about to unfold, and its pages were yet to be written. As the first ships emerged from the wormholes, the ancient station hummed with renewed energy. Nova's radiant form pulsed brightly, their consciousness stretching across the vast network of newly formed connections. Within hours, the station transformed from a quiet outpost to a bustling hub of activity. Ships of various designs, both human and Kobali, docked at the station's ports. Diplomats, scientists, and curious observers poured into the main halls, their voices echoing with excitement and apprehension. Derek and Astra watched the influx of visitors with a mixture of wonder and concern. They could see the strain on Nova's ethereal features as their child worked to maintain stability across the expanding network. "We need to establish some order," Derek said, his brow furrowed. "This many people, all with their own agendas. It's a powder keg waiting to explode." Astra nodded, her eyes never leaving Nova's flickering form. "You're right. We need a unified approach, something to bring both sides together." They approached Admiral Voss and Admiral Zorn, who were engaged in a heated discussion near the main control console. The two leaders fell silent as Derek and Astra drew near. "Admirals," Derek began, his voice firm but respectful, "we propose the formation of a joint Human-Kobali Administrative Council. This station, this network, it's too important to be controlled by any one faction." Admiral Voss's eyes narrowed. "And who would sit on this council?" "Representatives from both species," Astra replied. "Including the two of you, of course. Derek and I would serve as liaisons to Nova." Admiral Zorn considered the proposal, his alien features unreadable. After a moment, he nodded slowly. "It has merit. A united front would certainly help manage the current situation." With reluctant agreement from both admirals, the Human-Kobali Administrative Council was quickly established. As they worked to create guidelines for the use and exploration of the network, Dr. Ramos made her way through the crowded halls to find Derek and Astra. "I've made a discovery," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. "The medical chamber we used to stabilize Nova, it retained traces of their original DNA. I think we might be able to create a biological body for them." The news hit Derek and Astra like a shockwave. The possibility of giving Nova a chance at a more normal life, to exist outside the confines of the station, was almost too much to hope for. As they grappled with this new information, Colonel Reeves approached, accompanied by a Kobali scientist with iridescent skin. "Derek, Astra." Reeves nodded in greeting. "This is Dr. Kala. We're leading the first official expedition through one of the wormholes. A joint human-Kobali team to explore an uncharted system." Dr. Kala's multifaceted eyes gleamed with anticipation. "Our ship is equipped with technology reverse engineered from this station. We're ready to depart with Nova's guidance." The parents watched as Nova's consciousness seemed to split, part of it reaching out to envelop the expedition's ship in a cocoon of energy. As the vessel entered the wormhole, Nova's form flickered violently. "Nova!" Astra cried out, rushing to her child's side. Nova's voice came in disjointed fragments, echoing from different parts of the station. I'm here, there, everywhere, so many places at once. It's overwhelming. Derek turned to Dr. Ramos, his face etched with worry. What's happening to them? The doctor's fingers flew over her scanning device. It seems Nova's consciousness is fragmenting, scattered throughout the network. They're perceiving events at different wormhole exit points simultaneously. As they struggled to understand Nova's condition, tension began to build among the station's new inhabitants. A group of humans gathered near the main viewport, their voices rising in anger. We can't trust the Kobali with this technology. A man shouted, his face flushed. Humanity must control the network to protect Earth and our colonies. The speaker, a charismatic figure named Marcus Grayson, continued to rile up the crowd. The Kobali will use this network to infiltrate our worlds, to turn us all into their genetic playthings. On the other side of the hall, a Kobali general named Tora Jean addressed her own group of supporters. Only the Kobali have the biological compatibility to safely manage the precursor network. It is our destiny to control this technology. As the factions grew more vocal, small disruptions began to occur throughout the station. Lights flickered, and the hum of power conduits became erratic. The wormholes visible from the station's viewports wavered, their stable circular forms briefly distorting. Derek and Astra exchanged a worried glance. They could see Nova's fragmented consciousness, struggling to maintain control, stretched thin across the vast network. "We need to do something," Astra said, her voice tight with concern. "Nova can't hold it together much longer." Dr. Ramos approached, holding a complex-looking device. "I think I have a solution. This neural interface should allow you to enter a virtual space within the station systems. You could interact with Nova's fragmented consciousness there, help them reintegrate." Derek nodded, his mind focused. "We'll do it, whatever it takes to help our child." As they prepared for their virtual journey, alarms blared throughout the station. Admiral Voss's voice came over the comm system, tense and urgent. "The expedition team has made contact. They've discovered an intact precursor outpost with archives that could explain the network's full capabilities. All council members report to the main conference room immediately." Derek and Astra looked at each other, torn between their duty to the council and their desperate need to help Nova. The station shuddered around them, a tangible reminder of the fragile balance they were all trying to maintain. With a shared nod of understanding, they made their decision. The fate of two species, the entire precursor network, and their child all hung in the balance. Whatever came next would shape the future of human-Kobali relations forever. Derek and Astra exchanged a final glance before turning to Dr. Ramos. The decision was made. They would enter the virtual realm to help their child. As Dr. Ramos activated the neural interface, a sudden tremor shook the station. Lights flickered, and a high-pitched whine filled the air. Before anyone could react, a blinding surge of energy engulfed them. Derek blinked, disoriented. Gone was the bustling station. Instead, he found himself in a vast, pulsating landscape of light and data. Streams of information flowed around him like rivers of starlight. Beside him, Astra and Dr. Ramos materialized, their forms translucent and shimmering. "What happened?" Astra's voice echoed strangely in the digital space. Dr. Ramos's eyes widened as she took in their surroundings. The power surge must have affected the neural interface. "We've been pulled entirely into the virtual space." As they spoke, fragments of light drifted past them. Each shard contained glimpses of memories, Nova's first words, the moment they touched the artifact, their transformation into an energy being. Derek reached out, his fingers brushing against a memory of Nova's laughter. The fragment pulsed brightly before dissipating. "These must be pieces of Nova's consciousness," Derek said. his voice tight with concern. "They're breaking apart." They began to move through the digital landscape, drawn towards a distant pulsing core of energy. As they traveled, they encountered more fragmented memories. Some were vivid and stable, while others flickered dangerously, threatening to fade away entirely. Astra reached out to a particularly unstable fragment, cradling it gently. "Hold on, Nova," she whispered. "We're here to help you." As they progressed, the landscape around them shifted and changed. They found themselves walking through a recreated version of the station's corridors, then suddenly standing on the surface of an alien world. Each environment seemed to represent a significant moment in Nova's existence. In the physical world, Marcus Grayson strode purposefully through the station's main control room. His followers had overpowered the security personnel, and now he stood before the central command console. "The time has come," he announced, his voice carrying across the room. "We must secure the station and the network for humanity's future." His supporters cheered as they began to lock down key systems, cutting off access to the Kobali and neutral parties. Across the station, General Torajan led her own group of Kobali loyalists. They moved swiftly and silently, securing strategic locations. "Remember," Torajan instructed her followers, her iridescent skin shimmering under the emergency lights. "Our priority is the medical bay. We must protect the hybrid's original DNA at all costs." In the council chambers, Admiral Voss and Admiral Zorn found themselves surrounded by the sounds of conflict. The station's comm system crackled with reports of skirmishes breaking out across multiple decks. "We need to regain control," Admiral Voss said, her voice tight with frustration. "Where are Derek and Astra? We need Nova's influence to stabilize the situation." Admiral Zorn's multifaceted eyes narrowed as he studied the security feeds. "It appears they vanished, along with that human scientist, Dr. Ramos." In the virtual realm, Derek, Astra, and Dr. Ramos continued their journey. They navigated through a series of challenging scenarios, each representing a crucial moment in Nova's development. In one, they relived Nova's first successful connection with the precursor artifact, feeling the rush of ancient knowledge flooding their minds. As they completed each challenge, they noticed the wormhole network visible in the distance stabilizing, the fluctuations becoming less violent. "Our progress here is affecting the real world," Dr. Ramos observed. "But we need to move faster. Time seems to be flowing differently here." They pressed on, drawing closer to the pulsing core of Nova's consciousness. As they approached, they encountered a swirling vortex of energy, crackling with power and uncertainty. Derek reached out, only to be repelled by a burst of energy. Nova's voice, fragmented and distorted, echoed around them. "Who? Am I? What? Am I becoming?" Astra stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. "You're our child, Nova. No matter what form you take, that will never change." The vortex pulsed, Nova's fears and insecurities taking shape around them. Images flashed by, Nova as a human child, as a Kobali, as an energy being. Each form seemed to be at war with the others. "We're here to help you, Nova," Derek said, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "But you have to let us in. Trust us, just like you always have." The vortex of energy began to calm, the chaotic swirling slowing. As it stabilized, a path opened before them, leading to the core of Nova's consciousness. Meanwhile, on the physical station, the situation continued to deteriorate. Marcus Grayson's followers clashed with General Torajan's loyalists, their conflict spreading through the decks like wildfire. In the main control room, Marcus Grayson's face was illuminated by the glow of emergency lighting. "Cut off life support to the Kobali sectors," he ordered, his eyes hard. "We'll force them to surrender." Across the station, General Torajan received reports of the human aggression. Her iridescent skin rippled with anger. "Retaliate," she commanded, disable their communications, isolate them. As the conflict escalated, the wormhole network began to show signs of severe instability. Several connecting points started to collapse, the fabric of space-time warping dangerously. In the virtual realm, Derek, Astra, and Dr. Ramos stood before the core of Nova's consciousness. It pulsed with incredible power, streams of data and energy flowing in and out like the beating of a heart. "We're here, Nova," Astra said, her voice filled with love and dedication. "It's time to bring you back together." As they prepared to interact with Nova's core consciousness, they realized the magnitude of the choice before them. The fate of their child, the precursor network, and the future of human-Kobali relations hung in the balance. Derek took a deep breath, his form shimmering in the virtual space. "Whatever we decide," he said, looking at Astra and Dr. Ramos, "we do it together." They reached out towards Nova's core, ready to make their choice and face the consequences that would ripple across the galaxy. As Derek, Astra, and Dr. Ramos reached out towards Nova's core, they felt a surge of energy coursing through their virtual forms. The streams of data and light surrounding them intensified, creating a dazzling display of interconnected consciousness. "We're here to help you evolve, Nova," Derek said, his voice steady despite the overwhelming sensations. "To become something new, something that can bridge the gap between human and Kobali." Astra nodded, her translucent form shimmering with perseverance. "We believe in you, Nova. You have the strength to maintain this network while staying connected to your heritage." Dr. Ramos analyzed the swirling data around them, her eyes widening with realization. "The network is responding to our presence. It's as if it recognizes our intent." As they made contact with Nova's core, a blinding flash of light engulfed them. In that moment, they felt Nova's consciousness expanding, reaching out across the vast network of wormholes and connecting with the very fabric of space-time. On the physical station, alarms blared as energy readings spiked to unprecedented levels. In the central hub, a pulsating cocoon of energy began to form, growing larger with each passing second. The swirling mass of light and energy contained visible strands of human and Kobali DNA, intertwining in complex patterns. Marcus Grayson, who had been in the midst of issuing orders to his followers, fell silent as he witnessed the phenomenon. Across the station, General Torres Jun's combative stance faltered, her attention drawn to the mysterious cocoon. "Stand down," Grayson commanded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Everyone, hold your positions." The cocoon's pulsing light cast an eerie glow throughout the central hub, drawing the attention of both humans and Kobali alike. As the factions ceased their hostilities, a series of tremors shook the station, growing in intensity with each passing moment. Admiral Voss's voice crackled over the comm system, strained but authoritative. "All personnel, brace for impact. We're experiencing severe fluctuations in the wormhole network." As if on cue, the viewport showed several wormholes connected to the station beginning to destabilize. The once stable circular forms warped and twisted, threatening to collapse entirely. Amidst the chaos, a familiar ship emerged from one of the still-functioning wormholes. Colonel Reeves' voice came through the communications channel, urgent and clear. "This is the expedition team, requesting emergency docking procedures. We have critical information from the precursor archives." As the expedition team's ship maneuvered towards the docking bay, Dr. Kalla's voice joined the transmission. "The tremors, they're connected to the energy signature we discovered in the precursor outpost. Whatever's happening on the station is affecting the entire network." The Human Kobali Administrative Council, freed from their confinement by the chaos, rushed to implement emergency protocols. Admiral Zorn coordinated with the station's engineers, his multifaceted eyes darting between multiple displays. "Reroute power to the stabilizers. We need to maintain our connection to the network at all costs." As the Council worked to prevent a catastrophic collapse, a new arrival caught everyone's attention. Dr. Elias Venn, a renowned human xenobiologist, stepped off a recently docked shuttle, his eyes immediately drawn to the pulsating energy cocoon. "Fascinating," he muttered, quickly setting up a makeshift analysis station near the phenomenon. "The energy signature, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. It's as if human and Kobali biology are merging on a quantum level." As Dr. Venn worked, the cocoon continued to grow, its tendrils of energy reaching out and interfering with nearby systems. Lights flickered and communication panels sputtered with static. In the virtual realm, Derek, Astra, and Dr. Ramos felt their connection to Nova's core weakening. Their forms began to flicker and fade, the digital landscape around them destabilizing. "We're running out of time," Dr. Ramos warned, her voice echoing strangely in the fluctuating space. "Nova's transformation is affecting our connection to the physical world." Derek looked at Astra, a silent understanding passing between them. "We have to give it everything we've got," he said. "For Nova, for everyone on that station." With a shared nod, they channeled their own life energies into Nova's core consciousness. The virtual space around them erupted in a cacophony of light and sound, the very fabric of the digital realm seeming to tear apart. In the physical world, the energy cocoon flared with blinding intensity. The surge overloaded the station systems, plunging everything into darkness. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then, as emergency power flickered to life, the cocoon disappeared. In its place stood a humanoid figure composed of swirling energy, Nova reborn. This new incarnation of Nova, neither fully human nor Kobali, but something entirely unique, raised its hands. Tendrils of energy extended from its form, reaching out to connect with the station's systems and the wormhole network beyond. As Nova worked to stabilize the precursor technology, Derek, Astra, and Dr. Ramos found themselves back in their physical bodies. They collapsed to the floor, weakened but alive, their minds reeling from the experience. The station's population watched in awe as Nova addressed them, its voice a harmonic blend of spoken word and telepathic projection. "I am Nova, child of two worlds, keeper of the precursor network." This technology was not meant for dominion or separation, but for cooperation and understanding between all sentient beings. As Nova spoke, the wormholes visible from the station's viewport stabilized, their circular forms returning to their previous, stable state. The tremor subsided, and a sense of calm settled over the station. Marcus Grayson and General Torajan, who had been at the forefront of the conflict, found themselves standing side by side, their previous animosity forgotten in the face of this new reality. "Perhaps," Grayson said, his voice barely audible, "we've been looking at this all wrong." Torajan nodded, her iridescent skin reflecting the glow of Nova's energy form. "There is much we could learn from each other, if we are willing to try." As the immediate crisis passed, the Human Kobali Administrative Council convened an emergency session. Admiral Voss addressed the gathered members, her face etched with the weight of recent events. "We stand at a crossroads," she began, her gaze sweeping across the room. "The decisions we make here will shape the future of not just our two species, but potentially countless others connected by this network." Admiral Zorn stepped forward, his multifaceted eyes gleaming. "We must consider the implications of Nova's existence, the true potential of the precursor network, and how we can move forward together." As the council began their deliberations, Derek and Astra found themselves at the center of attention. Their unique position as Nova's parents and their experience in the virtual realm made them invaluable to the discussions. Derek cleared his throat, addressing the council. "Nova's transformation has shown us that there's more to this network than we ever imagined. We have an opportunity here, not just for exploration, but for genuine understanding between our species." Astra nodded, adding, "And perhaps, with Nova's guidance, we can extend that understanding to other civilizations we may encounter through the network." As the council meeting continued, plans began to take shape for joint human-Kobali expeditions to other systems connected by the wormhole network. Nova, in its new form, would serve as a guide and mediator for these missions. The station buzzed with activity as preparations for these expeditions began. Human and Kobali crew members, who had been at odds just hours before, now worked side by side, their shared purpose overriding their previous conflicts. Derek and Astra watched as Nova interacted with both species, its energy form shifting subtly as it communicated with each individual. They realized that their role as parents had changed dramatically, but their love and support for their child remained constant. As the first joint expedition prepared to depart, Nova approached its parents, its form shimmering with excitement and anticipation. "We stand on the threshold of a new era," it said, its voice resonating with newfound wisdom. "There is so much to discover, so much to learn." Derek and Astra exchanged a glance, their faces a mixture of pride and wonder. They had started this journey as a simple family seeking answers, and now they found themselves at the forefront of a new chapter in interstellar relations. As Nova turned to join the expedition team, Derek and Astra knew that their adventures were far from finished. The precursor network held countless mysteries, and they would face them together as a family that now bridged the gap between species and perhaps even the very nature of existence itself. As the first joint expedition prepared to depart, a sense of cautious optimism permeated the station. However, this newfound harmony was soon challenged by an unexpected development that would once again test the delicate balance between humans and Kobali. Dr. Elias Venn, who had been meticulously analyzing data from Nova's transformation, burst into the council chamber, his eyes wide with excitement and disbelief. "Admirals, I have urgent news," he announced, his voice trembling slightly. "We've detected a surge of unexpected pregnancies among human Kobali couples across the network." The room fell silent as the implications of his words sank in. Admiral Voss leaned forward, her brow furrowed. "How is this possible? Our species were thought to be genetically incompatible." Dr. Venn activated a holographic display, showing a complex web of DNA strands intertwining. "It appears that the energy pulse emitted during Nova's transformation has altered the genetic makeup of both species on a fundamental level. These changes have made cross-species reproduction not just possible, but seemingly effortless." The news spread quickly through the station, eliciting a mix of reactions. In the habitat ring, a human woman named Sarah embraced her Kobali partner, Krell, tears of joy streaming down her face. "We're going to have a baby," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. Nearby, a group of Kobali traditionalists huddled together, their iridescent skin pulsing with agitation. "This is an abomination," one hissed. "It will dilute our genetic purity." As tensions began to simmer, Derek and Astra found themselves thrust into the role of mediators. They stood before a mixed crowd in the station's central plaza, their experiences as Nova's parents lending weight to their words. "We understand your concerns," Derek began, his voice steady and reassuring. "This situation is unprecedented and, frankly, overwhelming. But we've seen firsthand the beauty and potential that can arise from the union of our species." Astra nodded, her gaze sweeping across the assembled faces. "Our child, Nova, has shown us that we are stronger together. These pregnancies are not a threat, but an opportunity for greater understanding and connection between our peoples." As they spoke, Nova's energy form shimmered into existence beside them, its presence a powerful reminder of the possibilities that lay ahead. The crowd's murmurs subsided, replaced by a tentative sense of hope. In response to the growing need for support and information, Dr. Venn established a dedicated medical facility on the station. The sleek, curved structure quickly became a hub of activity, with expectant couples from both species seeking guidance and care. Inside the facility, Dr. Venn worked tirelessly, his hands flying over holographic displays as he analyzed data from the latest scans. The fetal development is nothing short of miraculous, he explained to a rapt audience of medical staff. We're seeing a perfect blend of human and Kobali traits, with none of the genetic incompatibilities we once feared. As the days passed, the station hummed with a new energy. The impending births became a symbol of the future that lay ahead, a tangible representation of the union between humans and Kobali. However, this period of anticipation was not without its challenges. Nova, still adjusting to its role as the keeper of the precursor network, began to show signs of strain. Its energy form flickered and wavered as it struggled to maintain the vast system of wormholes. "We need to find a way to ease the burden on Nova," Admiral Zorn declared during an emergency council session. "Our entire network hangs in the balance." After heated debate, the council approved the formation of the Nexus Corps, a team of specially trained human and Kobali operators to assist in network management. The training facility buzzed with activity as recruits from both species learned to interface with the station's complex systems under Nova's guidance. Amidst this flurry of activity, the first joint human-Kobali expedition returned, their ship emerging from a stable wormhole. Colonel Reeves and Dr. Kalla stepped onto the station's deck, their faces etched with a mix of excitement and concern. "We've made incredible discoveries," Colonel Reeves reported to the council. "But we've also encountered a situation that requires immediate attention." Dr. Kalla stepped forward, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. "We've brought back refugees from a world on the brink of ecological collapse. They had no choice but to abandon their home." The arrival of the refugees added a new layer of complexity to the station's already delicate balance. As plans were drawn up to expand the station's habitation modules, Derek and Astra found themselves grappling with unexpected changes of their own. One evening, as they prepared for bed, Derek noticed a faint iridescence to his skin, reminiscent of the Kobali. "Astra," he called out, his voice tinged with a mix of fascination and unease. "Look at this." Astra approached, her eyes widening as she saw the change. She held out her arm next to his, revealing a similar transformation. "It's happening to me too," she whispered. As they stood there, marveling at their gradually hybridizing bodies, a tremor ran through the station. Alarms blared, and Nova's voice echoed through the comm system. "Alert," it announced, its tone urgent yet controlled. "A new wormhole has spontaneously formed. Initial scans indicate the presence of a massive artificial structure beyond." Derek and Astra exchanged a look, their personal concerns momentarily forgotten in the face of this new discovery. As they rushed to the control center, they knew that once again they stood on the brink of a new chapter in their interstellar journey. Adventure. The massive artificial structure loomed beyond the newly formed wormhole, a testament to the vast unknown that still lay ahead. As Derek and Astra rushed to the control center, they were met with a flurry of activity. Technicians and officers worked frantically at their stations, their faces illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. Admiral Voss stood at the center of the room, her expression grave as she studied the incoming data. "Report," she commanded as Derek and Astra approached. Colonel Reeves stepped forward, his uniform still bearing the dust of distant worlds. "The structure appears to be of precursor origin, Admiral. Its size and complexity dwarf anything we've encountered so far." Dr. Kalla, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the holographic images, added, "Initial scans suggest it's been dormant for millennia, but our presence seems to have triggered some kind of activation sequence." As the team debated their next move, a piercing cry echoed through the station's corridors. Derek and Astra exchanged worried glances, recognizing the sound as coming from the nursery where the newly born human Kobali hybrids were being cared for. Dr. Elias Venn's voice crackled over the comm system, urgent and strained. "We need assistance in the medical bay immediately. The hybrid infants are exhibiting unusual behavior. Derek and Astra race to the medical bay, their own bodies tingling with the strange new sensations of their hybridization. As they entered, they were met with a scene of chaos. The infants, barely a few weeks old, were surrounded by shimmering fields of energy, their cries resonating at frequencies that made the medical equipment spark and malfunction. Dr. Venn looked up from his console, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination. "Their growth rate is off the charts," he explained, gesturing to a nearby infant whose body was visibly changing before their eyes. "And they seem to be interfacing with the station's systems on an instinctual level." As if to underscore his point, the lights in the medical bay flickered, and a nearby diagnostic panel exploded in a shower of sparks. Astra moved quickly to comfort a distraught parent, while Derek approached one of the cribs. The infant inside locked eyes with him, and Derek felt a sudden rush of information flood his mind. Images of the station's inner workings, glimpses of distant worlds connected by the wormhole network, and a sense of vast, untapped potential overwhelmed him. "They're not just growing," Derek gasped, steadying himself against the crib. "They're evolving, adapting to the station and the network itself." Alarms blared throughout the station as life support systems in the newly constructed habitation modules began to fail. Panic spread among the residents as oxygen levels dropped and temperature controls malfunctioned. Admiral Zorn's voice echoed through the comms, tense but controlled. "All available personnel, report to the affected areas immediately. We need to evacuate the endangered sections and stabilize the systems." Derek and Astra found themselves at the center of a hastily formed crisis team. Their unique connection to Nova and their own hybrid physiology made them invaluable in understanding and addressing the chaos caused by the infants. As they worked to reroute power and stabilize life support, Derek noticed that his touch seemed to calm the erratic energy fluctuations in the station systems. Astra, too, found that she could sense and influence the flow of data through the station's neural network. "It's like we're becoming living conduits," Astra marveled, her hands glowing faintly as she interfaced with a malfunctioning control panel. Their efforts, however, were complicated by the growing tensions among the station's population. As news of the hybrid infant's abilities spread, fear and mistrust began to take hold. A group of human extremists, led by a former security officer named Garrett, gathered in the Commons area, their voices rising in anger. "These hybrids are a threat to our very existence," Garrett shouted, his face flushed with rage. "We need to contain them before they destroy us all." Nearby, a faction of Kobali traditionalists, their skin pulsing with agitation, called for the removal of all human influence from the station. "This is a result of straying from our pure genetic lineage," their leader hissed. "We must separate ourselves from the humans and their corrupting influence." As the situation threatened to spiral out of control, Admiral Voss and Admiral Zorn implemented emergency protocols. Security teams were deployed throughout the station, and a secure zone was established for the affected families. "We need to buy time," Admiral Voss declared during an emergency council session. "Time to understand what's happening and find a solution before this tears our alliance apart." Nova, sensing the escalating crisis, attempted to intervene. Its energy form coalesced in the center of the medical bay, pulsing with an intense, otherworldly light. With a gesture, Nova created a specialized energy field around the hybrid infants, hoping to dampen their effect on the station. The immediate result was promising. The erratic energy fluctuations subsided, and the infants' cries softened to gentle coos. However, the respite was short-lived. Nova's form suddenly flickered, its voice echoing with strain. "The network. I'm losing my connection. The wormholes are destabilizing." As Nova's presence faded, the station shuddered. Displays throughout the control center lit up with warnings as wormhole connections across the network began to fluctuate wildly. The newly formed Nexus Corps sprang into action, their training put to the ultimate test as they fought to maintain crucial connections and prevent worlds from being cut off. Human and Kobali operators worked side by side, their differences forgotten in the face of the enormous task before them. Amidst the chaos, the expedition ship carrying Colonel Reeves and Dr. Kala emerged from the wormhole leading to the alien megastructure. Their faces were grim as they stepped onto the station's deck, carrying news that would add yet another layer of complexity to the already dire situation. The megastructure, Colonel Reeves reported, his voice tight with urgency. It's not just a relic. It's a weapon, and we may have just woken it up. As the implications of this new threat sank in, Derek and Astra exchanged a determined look. They knew that the challenges ahead would test not only their newfound abilities, but also the very foundations of the human-Kobali alliance. The fate of two civilizations and countless connected worlds now hung in the balance, with the hybrid infants and the awakening precursor weapon at the center of the storm. As the implications of Colonel Reeves' report sank in, a tense silence fell over the control center. The precursor weapon loomed as an imminent threat, compounding the already critical situation on the station. Admiral Voss's voice cut through the stillness, her tone resolute. We need a team to investigate and potentially neutralize this weapon. Derek, Astra, given your unique abilities, you'll lead this mission. Derek nodded, his skin shimmering faintly in the low light. We're ready, Admiral. But what about the hybrid infants? Dr. Venn stepped forward, his face etched with concern. Their abilities might be crucial in understanding and interfacing with the precursor technology. I recommend we include volunteer families in the mission. After a brief but heated debate, the council agreed. Within hours, a specially outfitted ship was prepared, its systems enhanced to accommodate the unique needs of its passengers. As Derek and Astra boarded the ship with the volunteer families, Nova's energy form materialized before them. I've integrated a portion of my consciousness into the ship systems, it explained. I'll guide you as best I can. With a final nod to the assembled crew, Derek gave the order to depart. The ship glided into the swirling maw of the wormhole, its occupants bracing for the unknown. The journey through the wormhole was anything but smooth. The ship bucked and shuddered, its hull groaning under the strain of unfamiliar forces. Derek gripped the control panel, his hybrid physiology allowing him to sense the fluctuations in the ship's energy field. Astra, he called out, help me stabilize the field. Together, they focused their newfound abilities, creating a bubble of calm around the ship. The hybrid infants, sensing the disturbance, began to cry in unison, their voices resonating at frequencies that made the ship's instruments flicker. As they emerged from the wormhole, the alien megastructure filled their view screen. Its surface pulsed with intricate patterns of light, responding to their presence. The ship's sensors screamed warnings as massive energy fluctuations emanated from the superweapon. It's activating faster than we anticipated, Astra said, her eyes scanning the readouts. We need to act quickly. Derek maneuvered the ship closer, but a sudden turbulence rocked them. The patterns on the megastructure's surface intensified, creating a resonance that interfered with the ship's systems. Everyone, brace yourselves, Derek shouted as he fought to maintain control. Drawing on their evolving abilities, Derek and Astra worked in tandem, their hands moving over the controls with preternatural speed. They managed to stabilize the ship's energy field, establishing a safe perimeter for operations. As the team prepared to disembark, a new challenge presented itself. Swarms of small, autonomous drones deployed from the megastructure, surrounding the ship in a shifting, metallic cloud. They're not attacking, one of the security officers observed, but they're blocking our access to the structure. Nova's voice emanated from the ship's speakers. The hybrid infants, their unique energy signatures might allow them to interface with the drones. Derek, Astra, you could act as conduits for their abilities. Derek exchanged a glance with Astra, both understanding the risks involved. "We'll try," he said. They gathered the infants in the ship's central chamber, creating a circle with the parents. Derek and Astra stood at the center, their bodies beginning to glow as they focused their hybrid energy. "Concentrate on the drones," Astra instructed the group. "Visualize a connection." As they focused, the infants' cries changed, becoming a harmonic resonance that filled the ship. Derek felt a surge of energy course through him, and suddenly his mind was flooded with images and information. He saw fragments of the precursor race's history, glimpses of their technological marvels, and flashes of the superweapon's purpose. Beside him, Astra gasped, overwhelmed by the influx of data. Outside, the drone's behavior changed. They began to move in synchronized patterns, creating a pathway to the megastructure's surface. "It's working," Derek said through gritted teeth, struggling to process the torrent of information. "We need to move now, while we have this connection." As the team prepared to exit the ship, a communication from Nexus 7 caught their attention. Dr. Ven's face appeared on the screen, his expression a mix of excitement and concern. "We've made a breakthrough," he announced. The hybridization process isn't limited to Derek and Astra. It's affecting all long-term residents of the station. The station itself seems to be catalyzing these changes. The implications of this revelation hung heavy in the air as the team stepped onto the megastructure's surface. They knew that their actions here would not only determine the fate of the superweapon, but potentially shape the future of both human and Kobali species. As they advanced towards the core of the megastructure, guided by the synchronized drones, Derek and Astra felt a growing connection to the ancient technology surrounding them. The hybrid infants, cradled in their parents' arms, cooed and gurgled, their small bodies pulsing with energy that seemed to resonate with the structure itself. They reached a vast chamber at the heart of the megastructure. Towering pillars of light stretched from floor to ceiling, pulsing with hardly restrained power. At the center stood a crystalline console, its surface alive with shifting symbols and patterns. "This must be the control center," Derek said, approaching the console cautiously. As they neared, the symbols on the console flared brightly. The hybrid infants began to cry in unison, their voices creating a harmonic resonance that echoed throughout the chamber. Suddenly, the reactivation sequence of the superweapon halted, the pillars of light dimming momentarily. Relief washed over the team, but it was short-lived. A deep, throbbing hum began to build, and new symbols flashed across the console's surface. "It's a failsafe," Astra realized, her eyes widening. "We've triggered some kind of self-destruct sequence." As alarms blared and the structure trembled around them, the team faced an impossible choice. They could attempt to fully disable the superweapon, risking a catastrophic explosion, or try to redirect its immense energy into the wormhole network, a gamble that could either stabilize the entire system or unleash chaos across countless worlds. Before they could decide, an urgent communication from Nexus 7 crackled through their comms. Admiral Zorn's voice was tense as he delivered the news. "The wormhole network is destabilizing. We're losing connections to multiple worlds. If we don't act soon, entire civilizations could be cut off. Or worse." Derek and Astra locked eyes, a silent understanding passing between them. They turned to address the team, knowing that their next actions would shape the future of not just their mission, but of 2 species and countless inhabited worlds. "We have a plan," Derek began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "But it's going to take all of us working together to pull it off." "We have a plan," Derek began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "But it's going to take all of us working together to pull it off." Astra nodded, her eyes glowing with perseverance. "We need to redirect the energy of the superweapon into the wormhole network. It's risky, but it might be our only chance to stabilize the entire system." As the team moved into position, Derek and Astra approached the crystalline console. They placed their hands on its pulsing surface, channeling their hybrid abilities to interface with the ancient technology. The hybrid infants, still held by their parents, cooed softly, their energy signatures resonating with the megastructure's core. Everyone, focus your energy on Derek and Astra, Dr. Kala instructed, her voice tense but controlled. They'll need all the support we can give them. With a shared look of willpower, Derek and Astra initiated the stabilizing pulse. Instantly, a massive surge of energy engulfed them, their bodies illuminated by a blinding light. The pulse rippled outward, coursing through the wormhole network in a dazzling display of power. Back on Nexus 7, alarms blared as the station shuddered violently. Captain Elena Reyes, recently promoted to lead the Nexus Corps, sprang into action. Reroute power to the shield generators. She shouted, her fingers flying over the control panels. Adjust harmonic frequencies to match the incoming pulse. The Nexus Corps worked with frantic precision, their human and Kobali members moving in perfect synchronization. Displays flickered, systems fluctuated, but under Captain Rhea's guidance, they held the station together. At the heart of the megastructure, Derek and Astra's bodies underwent a startling transformation. Their skin took on a luminescent quality, shimmering with an inner light that pulsed in rhythm with the energy flowing through them. Their eyes blazed with an otherworldly glow, reflecting the vast power they now channeled. As the initial surge subsided, Dr. Kala rushed forward, her scanner beeping urgently. "Derek, Astra, can you hear me?" she called out, her voice permeated with concern. Derek's voice came out strained, barely above a whisper. We're okay, but something's wrong. We can't let go." Astra's eyes widened in realization. The megastructure, it's integrating us into its systems. We're becoming part of it. Dr. Kala's team sprang into action, analyzing the readings from their equipment. The energy flow is stabilizing, one of the technicians reported. But Derek and Astra are now acting as conduits. If we remove them, the whole network could collapse, Dr. Kala finished grimly. On Nexus 7, the situation was evolving rapidly. Dr. Elias Van burst into the control room, his face a mix of excitement and alarm. "Admiral Voss, Admiral Zorn, we have a situation. The hybridization process. It's accelerating. All long-term residents of the station are showing signs of physical change." Admiral Helena Voss exchanged a worried glance with her Kobali counterpart. "We need to contain this," she said firmly. "Initiate quarantine protocols immediately." As the station locked down, tensions rose among the population. In the central plaza, a crowd gathered, led by a striking figure with iridescent skin and glowing eyes. "We are not a threat," Lyra, the charismatic hybrid, called out to the assembled crowd. "We are the future, a new species born of human and Kobali unity." Back at the megastructure, Derek and Astra found themselves immersed in a sea of data. Ancient knowledge flowed through them, revealing hidden chambers and long-dormant systems within the structure. "Dr. Kala," Astra managed to say, her voice echoing strangely, "there's so much here. Information about the precursors, their technology. We need to get this back to Nexus 7. As Dr. Kala's team began the monumental task of decoding and transmitting the data, the megastructure itself began to change. New configurations emerged, adapting to the hybrid energy flowing through its systems. Suddenly, a familiar presence washed over Derek and Astra. Nova's energy form materialized before them, pulsing with newfound power. "I've established a direct link." Nova's voice resonated through the chamber. "The precursor data. It's transforming me, expanding my consciousness across the entire network." As Nova absorbed the ancient knowledge, A new alert sounded from the expedition ship's communication array. Captain Rhea's voice came through, tense and urgent. "We have multiple vessels approaching Nexus, 7 from all directions. Human ships, Kobali cruisers. And something else. New wormholes are opening, leading to uncharted regions of space." Derek and Astra exchanged a look of concern, their bodies still pulsing with the energy of the megastructure. They knew that the actions taken in the coming hours would shape the future of not just their own species, but potentially all sentient life in the galaxy. As the situation teetered on the brink of chaos, with ships converging on Nexus, 7 and new worlds beckoning from beyond unexplored wormholes, the fate of the human Kobali alliance and the hybrid beings they had become hung in the balance. As the fate of the human Kobali alliance hung in the balance, an urgent alert pierced through the tension on Nexus 7. Captain Elena Rhea's voice crackled over the communication systems, her tone sharp with concern. "Admiral Voss, Admiral Zorn, we've detected a distress signal from an unknown outpost. It's coming from a newly connected world through the expanded wormhole network." The admirals exchanged glances, their earlier worries momentarily overshadowed by this new development. Admiral Voss leaned forward, her brow furrowed. "Captain Reyes, assemble a reconnaissance team immediately. We need eyes on the ground." Within hours, a scout ship carrying a mixed team of human and Kobali crew members, including several newly hybridized individuals, departed from Nexus 7. Lieutenant Kai Zhang, a human Kobali hybrid security officer with iridescent skin and piercing blue eyes, led the team. As they emerged from the wormhole, a verdant world filled their view screen. Kai's enhanced vision picked out the details of a small settlement nestled in a valley, surrounded by dense, alien vegetation. "Team, prepare for landing," Kai instructed, his fingers dancing over the controls. "Stay alert. We don't know what we're walking into." The scout ship touched down on the outskirts of the settlement. As the team disembarked, they were hit by a wave of humid air thick with the scent of unfamiliar flora. The ground beneath their feet pulsed with an unsettling energy. A group of colonists approached, their appearances a striking blend of human and Kobali features. Their leader, a tall woman with silvery skin and auburn hair, stepped forward. "I'm Selena Vore," she said, her voice a mix of relief and wariness. "Welcome to Haven. We've been waiting for someone to answer our call." Kai introduced himself and his team, explaining their origin from Nexus 7. As they talked, he noticed the strange behavior of the plant life around them. Vines seemed to creep closer, leaves quivered with unnatural speed. Selena nodded grimly. "That's why we sent the distress signal. Our paradise is turning against us." She led them to the colony's central building, a structure that blended organic architecture with advanced technology. Inside, holographic displays showed the rapid spread of mutating flora across the planet's surface. "We came here years ago, fleeing persecution," Selena explained. "We thought we could build a new life, a place where humans and Kobali could live together in peace. But now..." One of Kai's team members, Dr. Lyra Chun, a hybrid botanist, studied the displays with growing concern. "These mutation rates are off the charts. What caused this?" Selena's expression turned guilty. We've been experimenting, trying to create crops that could withstand the native plants. We thought we were helping, but instead..." "KS Communicator Shirpid. Lieutenant Zhang, this is Nexus 7. We're receiving your data feed. Dr. Ven believes there may be a connection between the plant mutations and the energy pulse from the megastructure." As the team worked to establish containment measures around Haven, Kai received another transmission, this time from the megastructure. Derek's voice, tinged with an otherworldly resonance, filled the command center. "Kai, we've accessed information about Haven from the precursor database. It was an experimental outpost, designed to study controlled hybridization of various life forms. There are fail-safe measures built into the ecosystem, but they've been dormant for millennia. Armed with this new information, Dr. Chun began working with Haven's scientists to develop a targeted genetic therapy. They set up portable labs on the colony's outskirts, racing against time as the aggressive flora threatened to overwhelm their defenses. Back on Nexus 7, news of Haven's discovery spread rapidly. Lyra, the hybrid rights activist, seized the opportunity to address the station's population. Haven is proof that we can coexist, that our hybrid nature is not a flaw but a strength. Her voice rang out in the central plaza. We are the bridge between two great species, and it's time we embraced our destiny. As debates raged on Nexus 7, more reports flooded in from across the expanded wormhole network. Other hidden hybrid communities, emboldened by Haven's discovery, began to make contact. In the midst of this chaos, Dr. Ven's research team worked tirelessly, analyzing data from Haven and other hybrid populations. Patterns emerged, hinting at the complex interplay between genetics, environment, and the mysterious energy permeating the network. At the megastructure, Derek and Astra's connection to the precursor systems deepened. They uncovered a network of dormant terraforming devices spread across multiple worlds, each designed to create environments suitable for hybrid life. As Kai's team continued their efforts on Haven, the lieutenant couldn't shake the feeling that they stood on the brink of a new era. The challenges they faced were immense, but so too were the possibilities. With the genetic therapies showing promising results and the colonists of Haven sharing their hard-won knowledge, a sense of cautious optimism began to spread. Yet, as news of their discovery rippled across the network, Kai knew that the true test of their willpower and the future of human-Kobali relations was only just beginning. As Kai and his team continued their efforts on Haven, events on Nexus 7 took a dramatic turn. Dr. Elias Venn stood before the Human-Kobali Administrative Council, his eyes glowing with excitement. "We've done it," he announced, holding up a vial of iridescent liquid. "Using the data from Haven and other hybrid communities, we've developed a treatment to control the hybridization process." Admiral Voss leaned forward, her expression a mix of hope and caution. "Explain, Doctor. What exactly does this mean for our people?" Dr. Venn activated a holographic display, showing the complex molecular structure of the treatment. "This allows us to slow down and regulate the genetic changes. We can implement a phased approach, giving individuals and communities time to adapt." As the council deliberated on the implementation of Dr. Venn's breakthrough, Captain Elena Reyes received an urgent transmission in the control room. Her eyes widened as she processed the information. "Admiral," she called out, interrupting the discussion, "we've detected a massive energy signature at the edge of our expanded network. It's like nothing we've ever seen before." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Zorn, the Kobali representative, was the first to speak. Could it be hostile? Captain Reyes shook her head. "Unknown, sir, but initial analysis suggests it might be a precursor origin, possibly a ship or mobile station." The council chamber erupted in a flurry of activity. Orders were issued, teams assembled, and within hours, preparations for a joint expedition were underway. Meanwhile, on Haven, Kai and Dr. Chun made a startling discovery. As they explored the outskirts of the settlement, they stumbled upon a hidden entrance, camouflaged by the native vegetation. "Lieutenant Zhang," Dr. Chun called out, her voice tinged with awe. "You need to see this." Kai approached, his enhanced vision piercing through the dense foliage. As the team cleared away the overgrowth, they revealed a massive door adorned with intricate alien symbols. "It's precursor technology," Kai breathed, running his hand over the smooth surface. "We need to inform Dr. Kala immediately." Back on Nexus 7, as news of the expedition spread, tensions began to rise. In the crowded corridors of the residential sector, a group of pure human and Kobali extremists gathered in secret. "We can't let this happen," a human man hissed, his eyes darting nervously. "This hybridization, this abomination, it has to stop." A Kobali woman nodded in agreement. "Our species were never meant to mix. We must act now, before it's too late." As the extremists plotted, Dr. Venn and his team made another breakthrough. In a secure lab, they pored over genetic data from hybridized individuals. "This is incredible," Dr. Venn muttered, his fingers flying over the holographic interface. "The hybridization process. It's unlocking latent potential in both species. Enhanced strength, cognitive abilities. We're only scratching the surface." On the other side of the station, Captain Reyes oversaw the final preparations for the expedition. The chosen ship, christened Unity, hummed with a mix of hybrid and precursor-derived technology. "Captain," a young ensign called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the megastructure. It's Derek and Astra." Reyes hurried to the communication array. Derek's voice, overlaid with an eerie resonance, filled the command center. "Captain, we've accessed crucial information about the energy signature," Derek said, his words coming in rhythmic pulses. "It's a precursor seed ship designed to establish new colonies. The technology on board, it could change everything." As Reyes processed this information, alarms began blaring throughout Nexus 7. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in a pulsing red glow. "Captain," a frantic voice called out over the comms, "we have multiple system failures across the station. The power grid is destabilizing." Reyes's training kicked in immediately. "Initiate station-wide lockdown," she ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. "All security teams, report to your designated areas. We have a sabotage situation." As Nexus 7 descended into crisis, the Unity prepared for departure. Its diverse crew, a mix of pure and hybridized humans and Kobali, stood ready to face the unknown. On Haven, Kai and his team, along with Dr. Kala, who had arrived to study the newly discovered precursor facility, watched in amazement as dormant systems flickered to life. The planet's aggressive flora began to recede, replaced by new hybrid species that seemed perfectly adapted to their environment. "It's beautiful," Dr. Chen whispered, her eyes wide as she observed a newly formed plant, its leaves shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. Kai nodded in agreement, but his mind was on the reports coming in from Nexus 7. "We've made incredible progress here," he said, his voice tight with concern. "But I fear we may be facing an even greater challenge back home." As the Unity embarked on its historic mission in Nexus 7 grappled with internal strife, the fate of the human-Kobali alliance hung in the balance. The discoveries made on Haven and the approaching precursor seed ship promised to reshape their understanding of the universe. Yet, with extremists threatening to tear apart everything they had built, the road ahead remained fraught with danger and uncertainty. Uncertainty. Kai's communicator chirped, interrupting his thoughts. It was Captain Reyes. "Lieutenant Zhang, we have a critical situation on Nexus 7. The Unity is preparing to depart on an urgent mission. I need you and your team to continue monitoring Haven while we investigate a massive energy signature at the edge of our network." Kai acknowledged the order, his mind racing with the implications. As he relayed the information to his team, Dr. Chen's eyes widened. "An energy signature? Could it be related to the precursor technology we've found here?" Before Kai could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. The newly discovered precursor door began to pulsate with an eerie light, its symbols shifting and rearranging. On Nexus 7, chaos erupted as alarms blared through the station. Captain Reyes sprinted through the corridors, her voice steady as she issued orders over the comm system. "All hands, this is not a drill. We have multiple system failures across the station. Security teams, Implement lockdown protocols immediately. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Tomas Vega fought to stabilize the power grid. His hands flew over the controls, sweat beading on his forehead. "Captain, we're losing containment on the wormhole generators." He shouted into his comm, "If we don't get this under control, we could lose our connection to the entire network." As Reyes coordinated the station's response, Dr. Venn burst into the control room, clutching a vial of iridescent liquid. "Captain, we have a solution," he panted, holding up the vial. "This treatment can enhance our hybrid crew members' abilities. It might be our only chance to save the station." Reyes hesitated for a split second before nodding. "Do it. Start with the engineering team." Meanwhile, aboard the Unity, the crew made final preparations for departure. The ship hummed with a mix of anticipation and tension as they disengaged from Nexus 7's docking clamps. First Officer Zara Cole, a striking Kobali-human hybrid, monitored the long-range sensors. "Captain, I'm detecting fluctuations in the energy signature." "It's moving?" Captain Elena Reyes leaned forward in her command chair, her eyes fixed on the monitor. "Helm, set an intercept course. Maximum speed." As the Unity streaked away from Nexus 7, the station continued to battle its internal crisis. Dr. Venn's team moved swiftly through the corridors, administering the hybridization treatment to key personnel. In the power distribution center, a group of engineers received the treatment. Within moments, their eyes began to glow with an inner light. They turned to the malfunctioning systems with newfound clarity, their movements precise and coordinated. "It's working," one of them called out, her voice filled with awe. "I can see the power flows. It's like they're speaking to me." Back on Haven, Kai and his team worked frantically to understand the activation of the precursor door. Dr. Kala, who had arrived to study the facility, ran her scanner over the pulsing symbols. "This is incredible," she breathed. "The door is responding to the changes in the planet's ecosystem. It's part of a larger terraforming system." As if in response to her words, the ground shook more violently. In the distance, they could see the aggressive flora receding, replaced by new, shimmering plants that seemed to glow with an inner light. At the megastructure, Derek and Astra writhed in pain as energy coursed through their bodies. Dr. Kala's team, monitoring their condition remotely, worked feverishly to implement the separation procedure. "Initiating Phase 1, Dr. Kala's assistant announced, her fingers dancing over the holographic interface. "Prepare for data transfer in 3, 2, 1. Derek and Astra's bodies arched as a surge of information flooded their systems. Their forms began to blur, shifting and reforming as the precursor technology integrated more deeply with their hybrid physiology. On the Unity, the crew watched in awe as the massive form of the precursor seed ship came into view. Its surface rippled with intricate patterns, pulsing with energy that made the sensors struggle to maintain a lock. "All hands, prepare for potential first contact," Captain Reyes announced, her voice calm despite the gravity of the situation. "Let's hope our preparations were enough." Suddenly, a brilliant beam of energy lanced out from the seed ship, enveloping the Unity in a cocoon of light. The hybrid crew members gasped as they felt a surge of power coursing through their bodies. "Captain," Zara called out, her voice filled with wonder. I can feel the ship. It's like we're connected somehow." As the Unity systems came alive with new possibilities, the crew braced themselves for whatever would come next. The seed ship loomed ever larger in their view screen, a silent sentinel holding the keys to their future. On Nexus 7 in Haven and at the megastructure, the various teams continued their desperate efforts to understand and control the rapidly unfolding events. The fate of the Human-Kobali alliance hung in the balance as they stood on the precipice of a new era, one that would redefine the very nature of their existence. As the Unity approached the massive precursor seed ship, Captain Elena Reyes steeled herself for the unknown. "All hands, prepare for docking procedures," she announced, her voice steady despite the tension palpable on the bridge. "We're about to make history." The Unity's sleek form glided alongside the ancient vessel, its surface shimmering with patterns that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the hybrid crew members' heightened senses. As the airlock connected with a soft hiss, Captain Reyes turned to her team. "First Officer Cole, Lieutenant Dax, you're with me. The rest of you, maintain position and be ready for anything." The trio stepped into the airlock, their hybrid physiology buzzing with anticipation. As the inner door slid open, they were greeted by a sight that took their breath away. A vast chamber stretched before them, filled with rows upon rows of stasis pods. Each pod emitted a soft glow, hinting at the diverse life forms contained within. The walls were lined with intricate patterns of light, pulsing gently in harmony with the ship's systems. "My God!" Lieutenant Dax whispered, his enhanced vision picking up details invisible to normal human eyes. "It's like a cosmic Noah's Ark." Captain Reyes moved forward, her hand hovering over a nearby console. As her fingers made contact, the surface came to life, holographic displays materializing around them. "It seems to be responding to our hybrid physiology," First Officer Cole observed, her Kobali heritage evident in the subtle patterns on her skin. Suddenly, a central pillar in the chamber lit up, projecting a massive holographic interface. The image coalesced into a three-dimensional star map, with countless points of light representing different worlds and species. "Captain," the ship's AI spoke, its voice resonating through their minds rather than their ears. "Welcome to Seed Ship Epsilon. We have been waiting for beings such as yourselves to arrive." As Captain Reyes engaged with the AI, learning about the ship's mission to preserve and propagate diverse species across the galaxy, the situation on Nexus 7 was reaching a critical point. Chief Engineer Tomas Vega, his body now coursing with enhanced hybrid abilities, worked feverishly alongside his team to stabilize the power grid. His fingers danced over the controls with inhuman speed and precision. "Rerouting power from auxiliary systems," he called out, his eyes glowing with an inner light. "Initiating emergency protocols Alpha through Delta." The station shuddered, lights flickering ominously, but then steadied as the power flow stabilized. A cheer went up from the engineering team, but their celebration was short-lived. "Chief," one of the junior engineers called out, her face pale. "The sabotage caused more damage than we thought. The station's structural integrity is compromised." Admiral Helena Voss's voice crackled over the comms. "All personnel, this is not a drill. Initiate emergency evacuation procedures. Non-essential staff are to report to designated transport zones immediately." As chaos erupted across Nexus 7, the megastructure hummed with newfound energy. Derek and Astra, their bodies still adjusting to the influx of precursor technology, found themselves connected to a vast network of information and control systems. "It's incredible," Derek breathed, his eyes unfocused as he sifted through the data streaming through his mind. "I can see everything, every wormhole, every precursor outpost." Astra nodded. Her own consciousness expanded beyond the confines of her physical form. "We need to run a diagnostic. There might be more out there that we haven't discovered yet." Together, they initiated a network-wide scan, their hybrid minds working in perfect synchronization with the ancient precursor systems. As the diagnostic progressed, dormant facilities on distant worlds began to flicker to life, responding to the call of their long-lost creators. On Haven, the ground continued to shake as the terraforming process accelerated. Dr. Kala and her team watched in awe as the landscape transformed before their eyes. Suddenly, a massive section of Earth began to sink, revealing a hidden entrance to an underground complex. "This is it," Dr. Kala said, her eyes wide with excitement. This could be the key to understanding the precursor's plans for this world. As they descended into the facility, they were greeted by rows of advanced medical equipment, each piece more sophisticated than anything they had ever encountered. Dr. Kala approached one of the devices, her hands hovering over its controls. If we can decipher this technology, she mused, we might be able to stabilize the hybridization process across all affected populations. Back on the Unity, Captain Reyes and her team delved deeper into the Siege ship's database. The wealth of information was staggering, containing detailed genetic profiles of thousands of species, including early human Kobali hybrids. "This is incredible," First Officer Cole said, her fingers flying over the holographic interface. The precursors didn't just predict our eventual hybridization, they planned for it. As they absorbed the implications of this revelation, a priority transmission came through from Dr. Elias Venn on Nexus 7. His face appeared on a nearby screen, his expression a mix of excitement and urgency. "Captain, I received the data you transmitted," he said, his words coming in rapid succession. "This changes everything. With this information, I can refine the hybridization control treatment. We might be able to stabilize the process for all affected individuals." As the Unity's crew processed this news, the Siege ship's AI spoke again. "Captain Reyes, I detect that your civilization is at a crucial juncture. Perhaps it is time to activate the quantum communication array." "Quantum communication array?" Reyes repeated, her brow furrowing. "Yes," the AI responded. "A system capable of instantaneous transmission across vast distances. It could unite your expanding civilization in ways you have not yet imagined." As Captain Reyes contemplated this new development, the holographic display shifted, showing a strange anomaly forming at the edge of the known wormhole network. A new connection was spontaneously forming, reaching out into uncharted space. "Captain," First Officer Cole called out, her voice filled with awe, "you need to see this. Whatever's on the other side of that wormhole. It's massive." The display zoomed in, revealing the faint outline of an enormous artificial structure, dwarfing even the megastructure in its complexity and scale. As the Unity's crew stood transfixed by this new discovery, the hybrid civilization stood on the brink of a new era. With the integration of precursor technology, the stabilization of the hybridization process, and the emergence of new habitable worlds, the possibilities seemed endless. Yet, as they peered into the unknown depths of space, they knew that even greater challenges and opportunities lay ahead. The newly formed wormhole pulsed with energy, beckoning the Unity and its crew towards an uncertain future. As the Unity prepared for its journey into the unknown, attention shifted back to the original catalyst of these monumental events. Derek and Astra, their bodies now a perfect fusion of human, Kobali, and precursor technology, stood hand in hand on the observation deck of Nexus 7. Their child, Nova, floated beside them, their forms shimmering with an otherworldly energy. "It's time," Derek said, his voice resonating with newfound depth. "Nexus 7 needs us." Astra nodded, her eyes flickering with streams of data. "The station stabilization efforts require our unique perspective." Nova's form coalesced into a more humanoid shape, their eyes glowing with an inner light. "I can feel the station's systems calling to us. There's so much work to be done." The family made their way through the transformed corridors of Nexus 7. The station hummed with new life, its structure reinforced and expanded with a seamless blend of human, Kobali, and precursor technology. Hybrid crew members moved with purpose, their enhanced abilities evident in their fluid movements and glowing eyes. As they entered the central hub, they were greeted by Chief Engineer Tomas Vega, his body now a testament to the successful hybridization process. "Derek, Astra, Nova," he said, his voice filled with relief. "You have no idea how glad we are to see you." Derek placed a hand on Tomas's shoulder, feeling the flow of energy beneath the engineer's skin. "Show us what you've done, old friend." Tomas led them to the newly constructed modules, explaining the upgrades and expansions. "We've increased our power output by 300%, and our life support systems can now accommodate twice the population. But we're still struggling to fully integrate some of the precursor systems." Astra's eyes flickered as she interfaced with the station's mainframe. "I see the problem. The power distribution matrix isn't aligned with the quantum fluctuations of the precursor tech. We can fix that." As the family worked to stabilize Nexus 7 systems, Dr. Elias Venn approached, his face a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I hope I'm not interrupting, but I was wondering if you'd be willing to undergo some non-invasive tests. Your advanced hybrid physiology could be the key to refining our hybridization control treatment." Nova turned to the doctor, their forms shimmering. "We anticipated your request, Dr. Venn. We are prepared to assist in any way we can." In the newly established research facility, Derek, Astra, and Nova submitted to a series of scans and tests. Dr. Venn watched in awe as holographic displays filled with complex data, revealing the intricacies of their hybrid biology. "This is incredible," Dr. Venn murmured, his fingers dancing over the controls. "The way your bodies have integrated the precursor technology. It's beyond anything we've seen before." As the test concluded, alarms blared across the station. Admiral Helena Voss's voice echoed through the comm system. "All senior staff report to the command center immediately. We received a priority transmission from Captain Reyes." Derek, Astra, and Nova joined the gathering of human, Kobali, and hybrid leaders in the command center. Captain Elena Reyes's holographic form materialized before them, her expression grave. "Admiral, we've successfully integrated the quantum communication array from the seed ship," Reyes reported. "But that's not why I'm contacting you. We've detected a signal coming from the new wormhole connection. It's unlike anything we've ever seen." Nova stepped forward, their form rippling with energy. "Captain, can you transmit the signal data to us?" As the information streamed into Nexus 7 systems, Nova's eyes widened. Their voice took on a resonant quality as they spoke. "This signal, it bears the hallmarks of precursor communication protocols. The source may be related to the original creators of the wormhole network." A hush fell over the command center as the implications sank in. Admiral Voss turned to the assembled leaders. "We need to respond to the signal. But how?" Derek and Astra exchanged a glance, a silent communication passing between them. Derek spoke up, his voice carrying the weight of certainty. "We'll go, Astra, and I can lead a mission through the new wormhole. Our connection to the precursor systems gives us the best chance of establishing contact." Admiral Voss nodded, her expression resolute. "Agreed. We'll prepare the Unity for immediate departure. Assemble a crew of our best hybrid specialists. We need to be ready for anything on the other side of that wormhole." As preparations for the expedition began in earnest, Dr. Kalla's face appeared on the main view screen, her expression a mix of excitement and concern. "Admiral, we've made a significant discovery on Haven. We've uncovered a precursor genetic laboratory hidden deep within the underground complex. The technology we found, it's beyond anything we've ever encountered." The command center erupted into a flurry of activity as the implications of this new discovery sank in. Admiral Voss quickly dispatched a team of geneticists and ethicists to Haven, their mission to study the lab and develop guidelines for its use. As Derek and Astra prepared to board the Unity, Nova approached them, their forms shimmering with hardly restrained energy. "I want to go with you," they said, their voice resonating with dedication. Astra knelt down, placing a hand on Nova's shoulder. "We need you here, Nova. Your connection to the network is vital for managing the challenges we face. You'll be our anchor, our link to home." Nova nodded, understanding the importance of their role. "I'll make you proud," they said, their forms solidifying with grit. As the Unity prepared for departure, a surge of energy pulsed through the entire wormhole network. The megastructure glowed with newfound power, activating dormant precursor beacons across countless worlds. Derek and Astra stood on the bridge of the Unity, their enhanced senses attuned to the ebb and flow of energy around them. Captain Reyes gave the order, and the ship accelerated towards the newly discovered wormhole. As they approached the swirling vortex, Derek turned to Astra, his eyes reflecting the cosmic energy surrounding them. "Whatever we find on the other side," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "it will change everything." Astra nodded, her hand intertwining with his. "We're ready," she replied, her voice filled with quiet confidence. The Unity plunged into the wormhole, its hybrid systems humming in harmony with the ancient energies that propelled them forward. As they emerged on the other side, the massive artificial structure loomed before them, dwarfing even their wildest expectations. Captain Reyes's voice cut through the awed silence on the bridge. "All hands, prepare for approach. We're about to make history." As the Unity drew closer to the enigmatic structure, Derek and Astra felt a familiar presence brush against their minds. Their eyes met, a shared realization passing between them. Whatever awaited them within that colossal construct, it held the key to unlocking the true potential of their hybrid civilization. The ship's sensors came alive, probing the structure for any sign of life or activity. As they waited for the results, the crew of the Unity stood poised on the brink of a discovery that would reshape their understanding of the universe and their place within it. The massive artificial structure loomed before them, its intricate design dwarfing even the most ambitious creations of the human Kobali civilization. As the Unity approached the colossal construct, the ship suddenly shuddered, caught in the gravitational eddies of the wormhole's exit point. Alarms blared across the bridge as Captain Reyes gripped her command chair. "Status report," she barked, her eyes fixed on the screen. "Minor hull damage on decks 3 and 4. First Officer Cole responded, her fingers flying over the holographic interface. "Structural integrity is holding, but we'll need repairs soon." Derek and Astra exchanged a glance, their enhanced senses picking up the subtle vibrations coursing through the ship. "Captain," Derek said, stepping forward, "we might be able to help stabilize the ship's systems." Reyes nodded, her expression grim. "Do it." The hybrid couple moved to an auxiliary control panel, their hands working in perfect synchronization as they interfaced with the Unity systems. Energy flowed from their bodies into the ship, reinforcing shields and bolstering power distribution. As the Unity steadied itself, the crew's attention returned to the massive structure before them. Its ring-like shape became clearer as they drew closer, revealing a series of interconnected segments that seemed to house entire worlds within. "Initiating long-range scans," Cole announced, her voice filled with awe. "Captain, you're not going to believe this. We're detecting multiple ecosystems, city-sized habitats, and energy signatures that suggest advanced technology and possibly active civilizations." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just looking at an abandoned relic. This was a living, breathing nexus of activity. Derek and Astra stepped away from the control panel, their eyes meeting once again. Without a word, they reached out with their hybrid abilities, attempting to establish a connection with the megastructure's outer systems. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a surge of energy pulsed through the ship, and a massive docking bay began to open along the structure's exterior. "It's inviting us in," Astra breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. Captain Reyes stood, her gaze sweeping across the bridge crew. "Opinions? It could be a trap," Cole cautioned. "Or it could be the greatest discovery in the history of our civilization," Derek countered. Reyes took a deep breath, weighing the risks against the potential rewards. Finally, she nodded. "Take us in, Helm." Nice and easy. As the Unity glided into the cavernous docking bay, the crew watched in amazement as swarms of robotic maintenance units descended upon their ship. With incredible speed and precision, the units began repairing the hull damage sustained during their turbulent journey. "Their technology," Astra murmured. "It's beyond even what we found on the siege ship." Once the Unity was securely docked, Captain Reyes turned to Derek and Astra. "I want you two leading the expedition team. Your hybrid abilities give us the best chance of understanding and communicating with whatever we find in there." The couple nodded, their expressions a mix of excitement and purpose. As the expedition team assembled in the airlock, Derek and Astra at the forefront, Captain Reyes gave her final instructions. "Remember, we're here to observe and make peaceful contact if possible. Stay alert, stay together, and report back regularly." The airlock cycled open, and the team stepped out into an environment unlike anything they had ever seen. The docking bay opened into an ornate reception area, its architecture a seamless blend of organic forms and advanced technology. As they moved further into the space, holographic interfaces sprang to life around them, displaying welcome messages in a dizzying array of languages. Derek's eyes widened as he recognized some of the text. "Astra, look," he said, pointing to a particular hologram. "That's an early form of human language. And that's definitely related to Kobali." Before Astra could respond, a more sophisticated holographic entity materialized before them. Its form was fluid, shifting between various species in a mesmerizing display. "Welcome, travelers," the entity said, its voice resonating with a warmth that seemed to defy its artificial nature. "I am the custodian, caretaker of the Nexus Prisma. We have long awaited the arrival of new species capable of navigating the wormhole network." Derek stepped forward, his hybrid physiology allowing him to interface more directly with the holographic systems. "We come in peace, seeking knowledge and understanding. Can you tell us more about this place? This Nexus Prisma?" The custodian's form shifted, taking on a more humanoid appearance. The Nexus Prisma was created by the Precursors as a galactic hub for advanced civilizations. It serves as a meeting point, a place of learning and cultural exchange for species that have achieved a certain level of technological and societal advancement. As the custodian spoke, its gaze fell upon Derek and Astra, its expression changing to one of intense curiosity. "Fascinating," it murmured. "Your physiologies. They are unlike anything in our databases. May I have permission to conduct a non-invasive scan?" Derek and Astra exchanged a glance before nodding their assent. As the scan commenced, the rest of the expedition team began to explore the immediate vicinity, marveling at the vast libraries of information and advanced laboratories that surrounded them. Captain Reyes's voice crackled over the comms. "Derek, Astra, what's your status?" "Captain," Astra replied, her voice filled with wonder, "you're not going to believe what we found. This place, it's a nexus for multiple civilizations. And the custodian, it seems to know something about our origins." As the scan completed, the custodian's expression shifted to one of astonishment. "Remarkable," it said, its voice filled with excitement. "Your hybrid physiology bears striking similarities to that of the Precursors themselves. This suggests that humans and Kobali may have been part of an ancient precursor breeding program." The implications of this revelation hung in the air, leaving Derek and Astra momentarily speechless. As they grappled with this new information, the custodian continued. "There are other civilizations currently residing within the Nexus Prisma," it explained. "Would you like me to arrange an introduction?" Derek nodded, still processing the revelations about their possible origins. "Yes," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil of his thoughts. "We would be honored to meet them." As the custodian began making arrangements, Captain Reyes's voice came through the comms once more. "Derek, Astra, I've established a secure quantum link with Nexus 7. Admiral Voss and the Council need to be briefed on our discoveries. Prepare for a full report and brace yourselves. I have a feeling our civilization is about to change forever. The expedition team gathered around Derek and Astra, their faces a mix of excitement and apprehension. As they waited for the custodian to return with news of their impending meeting, they couldn't help but feel that they stood on the precipice of a new era for their hybrid civilization. The vast chambers of the Nexus Prisma stretched out before them, promising knowledge, alliances, and challenges beyond their wildest imaginations. Dreams. As they stood in awe of their surroundings, the custodian's form shimmered, its expression shifting to one of intense focus. Interesting, it murmured, its gaze fixed on Derek and Astra. Your unique physiology has triggered a dormant protocol within our systems. Please follow me. The custodian glided through the chamber, leading the expedition team down a previously hidden corridor. As they walked, the walls seemed to ripple and shift, revealing intricate patterns of light and energy. What's happening? Derek asked, his enhanced senses picking up subtle changes in the environment. We are accessing a restricted area, the custodian replied, one that has remained sealed for millennia. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that took their breath away. Rows upon rows of stasis pods lined the walls, each containing a different hybrid specimen. The air hummed with energy, and holographic displays flickered to life around them. This, the custodian announced, is the precursor hybridization chamber. Astra's eyes widened as she approached one of the pods. Inside, she saw a being that looked like a perfect blend of human and Kobali features. Derek, she called, her voice barely above a whisper. Look at this. Derek joined her, his expression a mix of awe and disbelief. It's us, or rather, what we might have been. Captain Reyes stepped forward, her voice steady despite the weight of the discovery. Custodian, what exactly are we looking at here? This chamber contains the results of the precursor's genetic experiments, the AI explained, including early prototypes of human Kobali hybrids. The implications hit the team like a shockwave. This was tangible proof of the ancient connection between their species and the precursor's grand designs. Reyes tapped her comm badge. Reyes to Unity. I need our xenobiology and genetics teams down here immediately. We've got a lot of data to process. As the research team arrived and began their work, Derek and Astra continued to explore the chamber, guided by the custodian. They came across a sophisticated device that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. What's this? Derek asked, reaching out to touch the sleek surface. The custodian's form shimmered with excitement. This is a genetic harmonizer. It was designed to optimize hybrid genetic structures for enhanced compatibility and stability. Astra's eyes met Derek's, a silent communication passing between them. Could it help us? She asked hesitantly. Indeed, the custodian replied. The harmonizer could potentially stabilize and improve your hybrid physiology. After a brief consultation with the Unity's medical team, Derek and Astra made their decision. They stepped into separate pods, the transparent covers sliding shut with a soft hiss. Initiating genetic harmonization process, the custodian announced. A soft, pulsating light enveloped the pods, bathing Derek and Astra in its glow. The Unity's crew watched anxiously as the hours ticked by, monitoring their vital signs closely. Meanwhile, Captain Reyes received an urgent communication from the custodian. Captain, representatives from 3 prominent civilizations within the Nexus Prisma are en route to meet with your expedition. Reyes straightened her uniform, her mind racing with the diplomatic implications. Tell me about them. The Zorthan, insectoids renowned for their biotechnology expertise. The Lumini, energy beings with unparalleled knowledge of quantum mechanics. and the Varunga, reptilians with remarkable terraforming capabilities. As the captain began preparations for this crucial meeting, the genetic research team made a breakthrough. "Captain," one of the scientists called out, her voice trembling with excitement, "we've found information about a planet called Genesis Prime. It was designed as a testing ground for hybrid species." Reyes ordered an immediate long-range scan, which revealed a thriving ecosystem with clear signs of advanced civilization. She made a mental note to include a request to visit Genesis Prime in the upcoming talks. Hours later, the genetic harmonization process came to an end. The pods hissed open, and Derek and Astra emerged, their bodies glowing with newfound energy. "How do you feel?" Reyes asked, concern etched on her face. Derek flexed his hand, marveling at the sensation. "Stronger, more connected." Astra nodded in agreement. "It's as if our bond with the precursor systems has deepened." Experimentally, they reached out with their minds, interfacing with the Nexus Prisma's technology. Information flooded their consciousness. The precursor's grand plan for galactic evolution, the purpose of the wormhole network, the ultimate goal of a unified galactic community. As they absorbed this knowledge, the chamber's main door slid open. The custodian appeared, its form more radiant than ever. "The representatives have arrived," it announced. "They await you in the central concourse." Captain Reyes took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "Well then," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment, "let's not keep them waiting." As the Unity expedition team made their way to the central concourse, Derek and Astra walked hand in hand, their enhanced senses attuned to the ebb and flow of energy around them. The revelations about their origins, the potential of Genesis Prime, and the implications of the precursor's grand plan swirled in their minds. The doors to the central concourse loomed before them, promising an encounter that would shape the future of their civilization and perhaps the entire galaxy. With a shared glance of dedication, Derek and Astra stepped forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Ready to face whatever lay beyond. The central concourse was a sight to behold. Its vast, domed ceiling shimmered with holographic displays of cosmic phenomena, while the floor beneath their feet pulsed with intricate patterns of light. At the center of the chamber stood three distinct groups of beings, each as alien and fascinating as the last. Derek and Astra, their newly enhanced senses tingling with anticipation, reached out with their minds to interface with the Nexus Prisma systems. Information flooded their consciousness, providing crucial insights about the assembled representatives. "Captain," Derek whispered, his eyes wide with wonder, "these species have formed an alliance. They've been collaborating on various projects within the Nexus Prisma." Captain Reyes nodded, her expression a mix of excitement and commitment. "Excellent work, you two. Let's make sure we put our best foot forward." As they approached, the custodian materialized beside them, its form shimmering with an otherworldly light. "Allow me to introduce the representatives of the Zorthan, Lumini, and Varunga civilizations," it announced, its voice resonating throughout the chamber. The Zorthan delegation stepped forward first. Their insectoid bodies gleamed with iridescent exoskeletons, compound eyes reflecting the chamber's ambient light. Next came the Lumini, beings of pure energy that pulsated with an inner radiance. Finally, the Varunga representatives approached, their massive reptilian forms covered in intricate scaled armor. Captain Reyes straightened her uniform and stepped forward. "Greetings, honored representatives. I am Captain Elena Reyes of the Unity Expedition. We come on behalf of the human Kobali hybrid civilization, seeking knowledge and peaceful exchange." The lead Zorthan clicked its mandibles, a sound that Derek and Astra instantly recognized as a sign of intrigue. "We welcome you, Unity Expedition," it said, its words translated through the Nexus Prisma systems. "Your arrival has stirred great interest among our peoples." As the formal introductions continued, Derek and Astra found themselves at the center of attention. The Zorthan representatives, in particular, seemed fascinated by their hybrid physiology. "If I may," the lead Zorthan scientist said, addressing Derek and Astra directly, "we would be most interested in studying your unique genetic makeup. The blending of two distinct species is a subject of great scientific interest to us." Before Derek or Astra could respond, Captain Reyes interjected smoothly. "We would be honored to share information about our hybridization process. In fact, we've prepared a comprehensive presentation on our civilization, including our technological advancements and societal structure." At a gesture from Reyes, holographic displays sprang to life around them, showcasing the achievements of the human Kobali civilization. The alien representatives watched with rapt attention as images of Haven, their terraformed homeworld, and the intricate workings of Nexus 7 filled the air. As the presentation concluded, the Lumini representative, a being of swirling light and energy, spoke. "Your achievements are impressive, Captain Reyes. We are particularly intrigued by the energy manipulation capabilities demonstrated by your hybrid individuals." Derek and Astra exchanged a glance, then stepped forward. With a shared nod, they reached out with their enhanced abilities, interfacing directly with the Nexus Prisma systems. The chamber around them came alive with pulsating energy as they demonstrated their newfound connection to the precursor technology. The Lumini representatives' form brightened with excitement. "Extraordinary! We would propose a joint research initiative to explore the applications of these abilities in the field of quantum mechanics." Captain Reyes smiled, recognizing the opportunity before them. "We would be most interested in such a collaboration. In exchange, we would like to request permission to visit a planet called Genesis Prime. Our research indicates it was designed as a testing ground for hybrid species." A moment of tension filled the air as the alien representatives exchanged glances. The Verwunga leader, its scaled form towering over the others, spoke in a low, rumbling voice. "Genesis Prime is a carefully balanced ecosystem. Introducing a new hybrid species could have unforeseen consequences." Derek stepped forward, his enhanced connection to the precursor systems providing him with sudden insight. "With respect, honored representatives, our enhanced abilities allow us to interface seamlessly with precursor technology. We believe this makes us uniquely suited to study Genesis Prime without disrupting its delicate balance." The alien representatives conferred among themselves, their discussion a mix of clicks, light pulses, and low growls. Finally, the Verwunga leader turned back to the Unity expedition. "Your argument is persuasive," it rumbled. "We will grant you access to Genesis Prime under certain conditions. In exchange, we offer to share our advanced terraforming techniques, which could greatly benefit your expanding civilization." As Captain Reyes began to negotiate the details of their agreement, the custodian suddenly materialized in the center of the chamber, its form flickering with urgency. "Pardon the interruption," the AI announced, "but I must inform you of a significant development. The activation of the genetic research chamber has triggered a series of automated processes throughout the Nexus Prisma. Long-dormant precursor facilities designed for large-scale hybridization experiments are now reactivating." The chamber erupted into a flurry of activity as the alien representatives reacted to this news. The Zorthan scientist stepped forward, mandibles clicking rapidly. "This is an unprecedented opportunity," it declared. "We propose forming a joint task force to study and manage these newly awakened facilities. The potential for genetic advancements is immeasurable." As discussions intensified, Derek and Astra suddenly tensed, their enhanced senses picking up a distant signal. They exchanged a worried glance before turning to Captain Reyes. "Captain," Astra said urgently, "we're receiving a priority communication from Nexus 7. It's about Nova." Reyes's eyes widened, concern etching her features. "What is it?" Derek's voice was filled with a mix of awe and apprehension as he relayed the message. Nova's abilities have suddenly expanded. Our child can now remotely connect with and influence precursor technology across the entire wormhole network. The implications of this revelation hung in the air, adding a new layer of complexity to the already intricate negotiations. Captain Reyes, her mind racing with possibilities, made a bold decision. "Honored representatives," she announced, her voice carrying across the chamber. "In light of these developments, I propose the establishment of a permanent human Kobali embassy within the Nexus Prisma. Our unique connection to precursor technology makes us ideally suited to act as intermediaries between the megastructure systems and your civilizations." The alien representatives fell silent, considering this unexpected proposal. The Lumini representative was the first to respond, its form pulsing with increased luminosity. "An intriguing suggestion, Captain Reyes. We would be amenable to such an arrangement, provided your civilization is willing to share its hybridization technology and allow for controlled experiments with volunteers from our species." Captain Reyes nodded, her expression serious. "I can provisionally accept those terms, pending approval from our administrative council. Now, if there are no objections, I believe it's time we prepare for our expedition to Genesis Prime." As the meeting concluded and preparations began, Derek and Astra found themselves at the heart of a whirlwind of activity. They worked closely with the Unity's science team, developing specialized equipment for studying the unique hybrid life forms they expected to encounter on Genesis Prime. The custodian approached them as they finalized their preparations, its form shimmering with an air of anticipation. "I have compiled all available data on Genesis Prime's current state," it announced. "Initial scans reveal a world of remarkable diversity, with many life forms bearing striking similarities to the specimens in our genetic research chamber." Derek and Astra exchanged a look of excitement, their minds already racing with the possibilities that awaited them on the surface of Genesis Prime. As they boarded the shuttle that would take them to this living laboratory of hybrid evolution, they couldn't help but feel that they stood on the brink of discoveries that would reshape their understanding of not only their own origins, but the very nature of life in the galaxy. The shuttle's engines hummed to life, and as they prepared for departure, Derek reached out and took Astra's hand. Together, they gazed out at the vast expanse of the Nexus Prisma, knowing that beyond it lay a planet that held the keys to their past and possibly the future of their entire civilization. As they gazed out at the stars, a sudden chirp from their communication devices shattered the moment of anticipation. Derek's eyes widened as he read the urgent message. "Astra, it's about Nova." Captain Reyes, overhearing the exchange, quickly made her way to the couple. "What's happening?" Astra's voice trembled slightly as she relayed the information. "Nova's abilities have expanded exponentially. They're now able to interface with and control precursor technology across the entire wormhole network." The implications of this development hit the team like a shockwave. Captain Reyes' expression hardened as she made a swift decision. "We're postponing the Genesis Prime mission. Set a course back to Nexus 7 immediately." The shuttle's engines roared to life, shifting from their original trajectory. As they sped to the wormhole network, Derek and Astra sat in tense silence, their minds racing with possibilities and concerns for their child. Upon their arrival at Nexus 7, they were greeted by a sight that took their breath away. The station had undergone a dramatic transformation. Sleek, shimmering surfaces melded seamlessly with organic-looking structures, creating a harmonious blend of human, Kobali, and precursor design. As they disembarked, Nova approached them. The young hybrid moved with a grace and confidence that belied their age, their eyes shining with an otherworldly wisdom. "Mom, Dad." Nova greeted them, their voice resonating with newfound maturity. "I've been waiting for you." Derek and Astra embraced their child, feeling the palpable energy coursing through Nova's being. As they pulled away, Nova's expression grew serious. I've accessed the precursor knowledge stored within the network, Nova explained, leading them to a holographic display. What I've discovered changes everything. The display came to life, showing intricate schematics and complex equations. Nova's hands danced over the controls, manipulating the data with practiced ease. The precursor's experiment wasn't just about creating hybrid species, Nova revealed. It was about fostering a galactic community capable of ascending to a higher plane of existence. Captain Reyes, who had joined them, leaned in to study the display. Are you saying that everything, the wormhole network, the Nexus Prisma, even our hybridization, was all part of this plan? Nova nodded solemnly. Exactly. And now, we have the power to bring it to fruition. Without warning, Nova reached out and grasped Derek and Astra's hands. Energy surged between them, their enhanced abilities amplifying one another. The station around them hummed with power as Nova initiated a network-wide activation of dormant precursor systems. Across the connected worlds, a cascade of events unfolded. On Haven, the terraforming technology evolved rapidly, creating perfect environments for hybrid species. The megastructure where Derek and Astra were once trapped began producing advanced technology at an unprecedented rate. Nexus 7 itself expanded, transforming into a central hub for the rapidly growing hybrid civilization. As the changes swept across the network, an incoming transmission alerted them to the arrival of representatives from the Zorthan, Lumini, and Varunga civilizations. Their ships emerged from newly established wormhole connections, their crews marveling at the transformed Nexus 7. The alien representatives, their faces a mix of awe and excitement, approached the Unity team. The Zorthan scientist clicked its mandibles rapidly. What you've accomplished here is beyond our wildest expectations. The Lumini representative pulsed with intense light. We propose a grand alliance of hybrid civilizations. Together, we could achieve wonders beyond imagination. Captain Reyes, recognizing the historic nature of the moment, stepped forward. We would be honored to form such an alliance. Let us draft an accord to solidify our commitment to cooperation and shared advancement. In the days that followed, representatives from all involved species worked tirelessly to craft the Nexus Accord. Derek, Astra, and Nova played key roles in the negotiations, their unique perspectives bridging gaps between diverse cultures. Finally, in a ceremony broadcast across the entire network, the Nexus Accord was signed. Derek and Astra stood proudly alongside Nova as they affixed their signatures to the document, officially establishing the Galactic Hybrid Alliance. As the applause died down, Nova turned to address the assembled dignitaries. This is just the beginning. With the genetic harmonizer technology adapted for large-scale use, we can safely expand our hybrid community. And at the heart of our network, we will build Concordia, a symbol of our unity and the launching point for our ascension. The announcement was met with cheers and excited discussion. As plans for Concordia began to take shape, Derek and Astra found a quiet moment alone with their child. Nova, Astra said softly, we're so proud of you. But are you sure about this ascension project? It seems so vast. Nova smiled, a hint of the precursor's ancient wisdom glimmering in their eyes. It's what we were meant for, Mom. All of us. And together, we'll unlock the secrets of higher dimensional existence. Derek squeezed Astra's hand, a gesture of reassurance they had shared countless times over the years. Whatever comes next, he said, we'll face it as a family. As they turned to rejoin the celebration, the vastness of space stretched out before them, teeming with possibilities. The hybridization project that had begun with an unexpected alien egg had blossomed into something far greater than they could have ever imagined. And though challenges undoubtedly lay ahead, the united hybrid civilization stood ready to face them, poised on the brink of a new era in galactic history.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, Please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.